All right, let's get it. Drive time Friday afternoon, about 18 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. Little late. We misbehaved during crosstalk today. The sun is shining after a cold morning today. Looks like we're in for a rather mild, if not warm weekend, and then a warm weekend to next week as well. Have we turned the corner? For those of you like me that are a fan of sunshine and warm weather, looks like we are on our way. About 40 degrees here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations. You made it. Weekend time. Good work, everybody. Bring it in. High fives. Drug your ass out of bed every morning. Did what you had to do. And now it is weekend time. We have a jam-packed Friday edition of the program for you guys today. Of course, we're going to get into the Four Nations Face-Off Championship, the Four Nations Face-Off Final, and talk about what's next for the sport of hockey, what's next for NHL fans, what's next for the Utah Hockey Club, and people already looking forward to 2026 when the Olympics roll in, and we'll see, hopefully, these two teams go at it once again. But it was a gripping television event, broke a bunch of ratings records, of course, broke a bunch of betting records as well. Team Canada was able to get it done in overtime. Connor McDavid, most people believe, is the best player in the world, and he certainly lived up to the billing last night. 3-2, your final score. Canada gets the win. They have won the last 8 national tournaments where NHL players are involved. Oh, excuse me, the last 7. And they're 8-1 in overtime games in those 7 tournaments, which I read this morning, which is mind-blowing, quite frankly. Hockey, excuse me, overtime in pro hockey is like the ultimate, this may end at any moment, and the U.S. peppered Canada with a bunch of shots but could not get it done in overtime. So really, really fun event in Boston, Massachusetts last night we'll get to. The Utah Jazz open up the quote-unquote second half of the season tonight. They welcome in the best team in the West, probably the second best team in pro basketball, as Oklahoma City will be in town. Big one out east in Cleveland as we're getting to know the New York Knicks a little bit better now. Are they a contender? Well, they have Cleveland tonight. Donovan Mitchell, Cleveland Cavaliers, Jalen Brunson, New York Knicks. So a lot of fun action in the world of pro basketball tonight. The Utah Hockey Club back in action tomorrow on the road against Los Angeles. BYU basketball will be at McHale. Tomorrow night they're taking on Arizona. University of Utah men and women in action on Sunday. And RSL opens up their MLS play officially after getting things rolling with the CONCACAF Champions Cup coming up on Saturday against San Jose. That's 8:30 Mountain Time. It's on MLS Season Pass on Apple. San Jose has a new player. He is a striker. His name is Chicho Arango. He played here last year. Do a little RSL on the program today. Latest in the world of college football. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. This trend is kind of emerging. A lot of people canceling their spring games. A lot of teams and programs canceling their spring games. Texas USC joins Nebraska now. And a lot of people believe this essentially is something that could kind of permeate throughout the world of college football. Not a whole lot of NFL news right now. NFL offseason kind of on hold. We're high speed ahead to the draft and the combine. So we'll get to some of the latest with the offseason stuff in pro football and college football as well. But good guest list, jam-packed guest list on this Friday afternoon to get your weekend started out the right way. Our first guest will be Kurt Schmidt right out of the gates. Then we'll bring in Howard Beck for some NBA. Tom Calhoun for a little bit of hockey, Four Nations and Utah Hockey Club. Sean Mooney to break down the latest with the Utah men's basketball program. He's on the call these days with our guy Bill Riley. And then Paul Pugmire, talk a little golf. The world of golf starting to get interesting now as we kind of inch our way closer and closer to spring. Kurt Schmidt, Howard Beck, Tom Calhoun, Sean Mooney, Paul Pugmire, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Happy Friday, happy weekend. Hopefully you have something fun planned. Weather should be okay. And that guy, hockey aficionado, Porter Larson, who right before we signed off last night, I think you said 3-2 was your final score prediction. I don't remember if you said Canada, but you might as well take credit.
Yeah, totally. That's. I think that's what I said.
Liar. You are lying to the people.
But definitely, predicted the score, knew how that was going to go. I watch a lot of hockey. I'm really dialed into the sport, especially internationally.
Oh, yeah?
So
how do you think Canada handled the blue line last night?
Obviously really well.
What about the crease?
Well, they handled that really well at the end.
Oh,
clearly, you get a guy of that caliber, that open at that moment. Yeah, it's going to turn out well for you.
You need to start a hockey podcast, dude.
Well, luckily for us, I do have to correct you. It's Tom Callahan.
What did I say?
Calhoun, I think.
Oh,
but Just the name. I don't know if it brings anything up for you.
No, so there was a Callahan kid on like the Olympic team in 1980.
I don't know if there's a connection there. For me, Tom Callahan.
Tommy Boy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Callahan,
sure.
brake pads. You're going to have to stop me from doing Tommy Boy references with him.
I thought the same thing, but I guarantee our guy has heard that his whole life. Right? Like, we can't be the first people to draw the parallel between he and Tommy Boy.
He's probably heard it too many times, but if you're joining a show that has anything to do with me, it's going to come up. I just have to apologize for that in advance.
See if you can get Chris Farley singing "Fat Guy in a Little Coat" as the intro to Tom Callahan today.
We could try that.
All right.
I'll see if he's okay with that, or if the Tom Callahan thing is probably over it.
I guarantee it's the most annoying thing of all time. Like, we're not the first people to make this comparison. So, Tom, I apologize. Not Tom Calhoun, Tom Callahan. Not the dude who sold brake pads with the Chris Farley movie. All right, enough misbehaving. On a Friday afternoon, it's time now for your opening tip. Your opening tip on a Friday is brought to you by Prize Picks, where you can now win up to 1,000 times your money. It's the best place to get real money sports action. The second half of the NBA season is here. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today. If you haven't done it yet, they're giving you free money. Go get the free money, check it out, and see if you like it. Use the promo code ESPN700. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So Prize Picks discount select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So check out our good friends at Prize Picks. All right, real quick here, because we're a little late with the clock. Sean and I misbehaved today. U.S.-Canada, Four Nations face-off. It broke ratings records. It broke betting records. Of course, if you pull up the front page of ESPN's NHL Spa, ESPN Bet is trying to capitalize on this moment to get you to play some money on the second half of the NHL season, obviously. But it was a gripping event, not just last night, but pretty much all tournament long. It's the first iteration of the Four Nations face-off. And, you know, it's an interesting reminder that sometimes the best things in life just catch you off guard and are entirely unexpected because, you know, Neil Smith is a regular on our show, and Neil's one of the most respected roster constructors that the Pro Hockey League, the NHL, has ever seen. And when we had him on prior to the start of the tournament, he's like, yeah, I'm not really juiced about this, not really into it. And then he joined us on Wednesday and completely ate crow. He's like, I was wrong. And if you listen to a lot of the NHL people interviewed about what we all just experienced, I haven't heard one person say, yeah, I called it. I knew this was going to be awesome. I mean, even NHL people that know the history and the passion between the U.S. and Canada national hockey teams, like, nobody predicted this. Not Neil Smith, not any guest I heard. Even Mark Messier, a great Ranger, the captain himself, talked about on the broadcast last night what a pleasant surprise this was. Now, oftentimes for the I'll just say the fringe sports. I know that sounds disrespectful, but the sports that are not football and basketball and baseball still regionally pulls tremendous ratings and interest. So any sport that isn't the big three, whenever a moment like this happens, the conversation simply is, what does it mean for our sport? What does it mean for our league? What does it mean for attendance? What does it mean for ratings? What does it mean for revenue? What does it mean for parents who are watching this with a 2-year-old son who shows a little bit of athletic ability? Will they encourage him to put on some skates as opposed to throw a basketball to him? I don't know. I mean, the parallel to draw certainly is the Miracle on Ice back in 1980. And a lot of really smart hockey people, and we'll get with Tom Callahan, not the brake pad guy, but the hockey guy today, on the effect of what could go down, because a lot of people are drawing the current landscape of hockey all the way back to 1980. Because the U.S. won the World Championship, the World Junior Championship this year. The U.S., let me say that again. The U.S. won the World Youth Hockey Championships this year, which I didn't even know until I was reading up about this. And a lot of people are believing this generation of U.S. players who were seeing the Kachuk brothers, et cetera, and their dad was a great player in the NHL for a long time. A lot of people are believing this influx of talent really started back in the 80s and has kind of continued to evolve and grow. And now we have one of the best hockey countries in the world. Now, Canada is still on top, and they deserve it. They're the winningest hockey country in the world. It's not even close. But for a moment in time, man, if you were not a hockey fan, maybe if you were skeptical about Smith Entertainment Group bringing the Utah Hockey Club here to the market, now you saw how magical that sport can really be. And ultimately, it's always been that way. To juxtapose it to the current situation in pro basketball is quite stunning and startling, quite frankly. These are players that show up, they play hard, they care about the jersey, they care about the club, they care about fans, they care about the investment you make into them in a way that most pro basketball players don't. Not all pro basketball players, but I think it's safe to say that most just don't give a rip. Because I watch every night. I know a lot of you do too. And if you don't care, guess what? We don't care either. All right. RSL opens up MLS play coming up tomorrow. Kurt Schmidt is our guest right on the other side of a quick break on this Friday drive on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. All right, we're going to bring in Howard Beck today, hippest NBA writer around. The Jazz begin the second half of the season tonight. Oklahoma City is in town, the best team in the West. We got Tom Callahan, not the dude who sold brake pads in the movie Tommy Boy, although that would be cool. Do a little hockey with Tom today. Sean Mooney for some college basketball. Paul Pugmire for some golf. But we'll start off a little soccer. Our guy Kurt Schmitz, the head honcho, the boss man. Even though it's a group thing over there, Kurt is the guy calling the shots, constructing the roster. Kurt, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Friday.
How about we do this? When you guys play well, you take the credit, and when you don't, you say it's a group thing. Maybe that's a dynamic.
Yeah, I mean that's very self-serving, but sure, whatever you want.
Well, no, I'm looking out for you, man. Kurt. I have your back. I'm looking out for you.
That's the old saying, right? Players win the games, coaches lose them, or something, right?
Yeah, there we go. I like it. All right, scoreless draw in the opener for CONCACAF Champions Cup. When you go on the road, obviously, you want to get a result. What'd you like, Kurt? What you didn't? What did you not like game one that took place on Wednesday?
I think, going into the game, we knew it was going to be difficult, and it's a difficult place to play. It's an unfamiliar environment for a lot of guys, and I thought they went down there and from a mentality standpoint, handled ourselves really well. Obviously we had some good chances to get an away goal and take the lead. We were a bit unlucky. We forced Red as one-on-one. We had a header that get cleared almost off the line, and I thought we created a couple other really good opportunities. But 0-0 on the road is never a bad result in these types of two-legged series, and we just have to come home and take care of business.
What, if anything, did you learn about the group? Because you have a lot of players that made their debut, and obviously these are players that you and your staff have scouted for a while, so it's not like, hey, let's learn about them because we're watching them for the first time. But now that we've seen the group together, and of course there's some injuries that we'll get to in a moment, anything specific stand out to you about the guys that were making their debuts?
Yeah, I think some of the guys that debuted, especially some of the young guys, acquitted themselves really well. I don't think you would come away from the game thinking that, Kobe Henry's brand new when he's only 20 years old, or that, this is Forster's first game with the club and some of those guys. So I thought some of those guys did a good job. Rafa, obviously, with his experience, you'd expect his composure and calmness. I thought Sam had to come in short notice with Alex coming out injured, and despite not having a real warm up, came in and put together a pretty solid performance as well. Overall, I thought the guys did. The new guys, I thought didn't look very new.
All right, so you open up MLS Play now, and it's San Jose, PayPal Park, 8:30 Mountain Time, coming up tomorrow, Apple TV MLS Pass. Let's get all that out there, Kurt, because we're trying to grow the game, and I'm an advocate. I've got your back, so there you go.
Thank you.
It's going to be a little bit odd, is it not, to see Chicho on the other side? I mean, what are some of the emotions you think are kind of permeating through the organization as the opener happens to be against the team that employs the striker that you sent them?
Honestly, we haven't talked about it much, right? I mean, obviously, we talk about it in terms of him being a player on their team that we need to game plan for and look out for. But as far as like emotional or emotionality, it's not there, right? So we're not talking in terms of like him being this guy who's someone that's more than what he would be as a player. I mean, he's a good player that we're going to be very aware of going into the game. But beyond that, I think, we've done a really good job, and this group has a phenomenal mentality of just staying focused on the task at hand. So I have to give, Pablo a lot of credit in keeping the group focused like that.
So, Kurt, news came down a number of weeks ago that you guys were adding Elias Manuel. I think that's how you say it. If it's not, my bad. Elias is a guy that has a good pedigree. He's a Brazilian striker, 23 years old, 18 goals, 10 assists, 84 games, all comps last 3 years with a team that went to the MLS Cup final. So I got to ask you, man, what happened? How'd this thing fall apart?
Yeah, well, I can tell you it's Elias, and I can tell you that because that's what he told me when we spoke. And he seemed, we spoke with him in his camp, obviously before the trade and right after the trade, and got on a call with Pablo and him and I, and it was all really positive, and he seemed really excited to come, and explained to him how he thought he fit into the team, and we were in a really good place until we weren't. And for whatever reason, he decided that, right before preseason, he didn't want to come. And that started some discussions and also some disciplinary stuff. But at the end of the day, we want people that want to be here. And we thought that was him. And as soon as it didn't describe him, then we were in a different place, and we knew we needed to move on. I mean, we want people that want to be here, and the only way this thing works is if people are bought in and focused and on the job at hand, and really want to be a part of this club and this community. And anyone who doesn't have that, we don't need as part of the team. So we began looking for a solution, and hopefully we're getting close to one here as well.
Were you given any specifics? Was it, I don't want to live in Utah? Was it, I don't think I fit in well there? Were you given any specifics as to why Elias did not want to move out here and play for the club?
Nothing really clear. It could have been a little bit of that. Although, like I said, when we spoke with the player, none of that came up. His only real concern was playing time, because that was actually before things like Anderson Julio and Chicho Arango, before those moves were public. So he wasn't aware of those. Once we talked him through that, everything was really, really good. So there wasn't a specific reason that I was given, whether it was playing time or the city or just moving or contract stuff, whatever it might be. But, once he broke that trust, it's really difficult to repair it.
So it's probably a dumb question, but what ultimately does this just mean? The trade is completely off and there's no harm done? You go your way, we go our way. Does the player get disciplined? Is there something that happens between the teams? Like, what ultimately is the fallout when something like this actually happens?
There are disciplinary actions the league will take when a player isn't, upholding their end of the contract. So that comes into play. As far as the trade, the trade isn't undone, does not become unwound. But like I said, I think we found a solution that makes us certainly whole at the end of the day, and we're still working to complete that, but that's what we've got on the table.
So, look, online rumors are just online rumors, Kurt, but obviously a lot of people are speculating that you have your eye on something different and you guys have moved on. Can you shed any light on the process of adding some talent there, probably specifically up top at the number 9 spot, since you guys had to move on from the player that you acquired?
Yeah, I mean, our search has been ongoing. We do have a very, very short list right now, and are working on some of those acquisitions. Certainly we have, obviously a priority, and we like some guys more than others, and we're trying to run down each possibility in order. So that's where we're at right now. I mean, it's not like someone's going to show up on the bench or in the lineup tomorrow. But we feel like we're getting close. But in the meantime, I think guys like Forster and Forster, Iago, and R.S. Puyol have done really, really well in preseason and have earned a shot to show what they can do. And I know Pablo's been very happy with them and keen to see what they can do in once they're battle tested and what they look like. So it's certainly they deserve the shot, and we're going to evaluate that as well. But we do have a list of candidates that we can bring in and help aid and add some quality to that rotation.
What is the name of your first choice candidate that you would like to bring in, and where does he play?
That's probably not going to tell you. So,
all right.
But good try.
You want to text me later? You want to just hit me up, text me later?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right, fair enough. Is it safe to say that you are looking at 9s? I mean, that's the spot you're looking to add?
Yeah, I think that's the one spot just numerically where we're a bit thin, right? Where we're the thinnest right now, even just from a number standpoint. So that's a spot that if we add another piece here, that's likely where we're going to add a piece.
Any other spot look, you have built a roster that in certain spots has tremendous depth, like your holding midfield. My goodness, you've got like 5 dudes, right? But, striker's the obvious option. Any other spots you're looking to add to prior to the window closing, I think late April?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, our depth everywhere else is pretty good. Our depth in the middle of midfield, is I think really, really good with Emeka Ojeda, Palacio, Pablo Ruiz, and even Noah Kaliskin, who came in and gave us some good minutes at times last year too. So we're very deep there. I think we've added some good depth along the back line. You saw Kobe Henry and Sam Junkwell play on Wednesday night, and I thought they both acquitted themselves really well. And so, it's in a game where we didn't have Justin Glad available from the start. I think in years past since I've been here, that would have been a much bigger problem than I think it was on Wednesday, and that's due to Kobe stepping up, and then we've got guys like Philip Quinton coming back in. So I think our depth everywhere else, has been really good. Even in the attacking midfield spots, we've got a rookie in Jesus Perea who's done really well also, and we'll push some guys for minutes when he gets on board. So everywhere else that we feel really good about the team.
You referenced Jay Glad. Let's get an update on the health of Justin, then also obviously the rest of the club. Diego, a lot of people wondering the deal with Diego Luna. When are we going to see Diego? So Diego and Justin specifically, and then overall, how healthy are you heading into the MLS opener tomorrow?
We are actually in pretty good health. We had a couple injuries, Diego, Phil Quinton earlier in preseason. Luckily, those guys are just getting back right now. So I think you should see both those guys on the field tomorrow, whether it's off the bench or from the start. We should see them play. Ari Peel had a little bit of a hamstring, but it was very, very minor, and he's kind of day to day, but is feeling better and better. And then even though Justin couldn't start on Wednesday, obviously still came in the game, and so he's ready to go also.
So just let me follow. So Diego should be available tomorrow against San Jose?
He should be.
Oh, good.
Correct.
Okay, good. No, great news. Great news. All right. Let's go back now real quick because I wanted to ask you about the attacking group on Wednesday night because obviously that's the spot that people are curious about. And Dominic started wide on the right. We had Diogo on the opposite side, and then it was Lachlan in central attacking mid just behind Forrester. That surprised me, but I'm not you. I would imagine you had an idea that Lachlan is a guy that I just figured Diogo was a little bit more naturally a central player, but I don't know my elbow from what about this sport. So tell me about the decisions as far as what Pablo decided to do with that attacking group and then how you thought they handled themselves on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably start listing our formation differently just to familiarize people, from the start, because it's always a 4-2-3-1 with those two wide guys and then a central 10, and it looks like pretty clear cut. But when we attack, we really like to push our left back up high, Alex or Sam Junkwell, whoever it is, and bring our left-sided guy, whether it's Luna or Diogo, inside into sort of a more central space, and our central 10 also drifts to the right in kind of a half space as well. So we play with sort of those two 10s in there, and with Lockie and Diogo, the thought was to have them both in positions that in the attack, they were coming outside in onto their stronger foot and could be a little bit more goal dangerous and more comfortable in that way. Lockie's played a lot as an inverted right winger coming into that half space from the wide spot. So he's comfortable in that space, and Diogo's played a lot, as a wide player on either side, to be honest, but coming inside from the left as well and into that space, kind of like Luna has in the past. So we just thought from an attacking standpoint, it suited those guys, and everyone's bought in on the defensive side of the ball and is willing to put in the work. And so, those guys are putting in the work. And when we defend, it's a little more 4-4-2, and it's a little more like you're used to seeing it, where Lockie will be next to Forster defending against sort of their back line, and Diogo will have to deal with their wide guy in that role. But yeah, it's more from an attacking standpoint, getting both of those guys in positions where they feel comfortable on the ball.
Then obviously you get a clean sheet, so I'd imagine you're happy with what happened with and I know you defend as a team, okay? I've learned over the years, I get yelled at, like, okay, I know it's not just the back four and the keeper, but Rafa Cabral gets a clean sheet for his debut for you guys, and you guys stay clean on that side of the ball, so I'd imagine you were pleased with the defensive effort, yes?
Yeah, Rafa's composure and calmness on the ball and defensively, his communication, his organization was all really good. The back line defended really well. It's a tough environment, like I said. So, it was a bit physical at times, and I thought they did a good job of matching that physical intensity when it was required. So, yeah, they played pretty well.
So fullbacks, of course, Alex Catranas, who every time I watch him, he ultimately continues to become one of my favorite players, and Bodie on the other side. But I think it was 3 years ago, Kurt, when I had you on after the season, and Andrew Brody had been named the RSL Defender of the Year. And I asked you if you were surprised, and you said absolutely not. And you gave a really eloquent, smart answer about the type of player that Brody is. And you guys elected to move on from Andrew Brody just a couple of days ago. He has landed on his feet. Sporting KC grabbed him. Homegrown player. It can only be tabbed as a successful story, start to finish. But how tough was that decision to let go of a guy that I know a lot of people over there liked an awful lot?
Yeah, it is tough, and nothing bad to say about Brody at all. And he is a great guy, a good egg in the locker room, someone who works hard and gives everything he's got every time he's out there, and that's what got him where he is now, and what got him on the field for us when he got on the field for us, and he pushed really hard. And I think it's really less about Brody and more credit to some of the guys we brought in terms of their ability to push into some of those roles and positions. And, as we talked about it, we felt that Andrew may not play as much as he had in the past, given some of the performances, some of the guys that are coming through. So, we wanted to try to find the best solution to help him land on his feet as much as possible. And I don't know that it was super clear and smooth always, but I'm really, really happy for him because I think he obviously deserves it. And I know he'll work hard and he'll do really well there. But yeah, sometimes it just comes to a point where it's run its course with maybe one club, and it's time to move on to get a change of scenery and try something in a different place.
I want to go back real quick before we talk about the match tomorrow, then I'll set you loose with Elias not showing up and not electing to move to Salt Lake and play for RSL. And just in your experience, is that something you run into maybe more than you expected? And the reason I ask, Kurt, is the RSL players in the past have seemed to embrace our city in a way that a lot of the Jazz players either never tried to, and I could give you a list of names of guys that had locked in that didn't want to move here, or players that have lived here for a few years and have decided like it's not for them. And I think for sports fans in our market, it's always been pretty refreshing. And I know that RSL fans hate when I go back to like the 2009 group, but all those guys just embraced our community. A lot of them could have played elsewhere, like Nikki and Kyle. And from my seat, I haven't seen a lot of this, players not wanting to come here from a soccer standpoint. So this feels somewhat new to me, but I'm not in these conversations the way you are. Is this a challenge that you guys face maybe more than most of us realize?
I don't know that that's the case, to be honest. I mean, it's not something where, a player refusing to come to a club, whether it's been RSL or any of the other places I've been, is really a big issue typically. This is kind of the first time this has happened. And, despite doing the work on the front end and getting buy-in, or at least feeling good about like everyone knowing what's going on, to the extent that it's ever in the cards, like that's usually made clear early enough in the process that you don't get to this point. But that's just clearly not what happened here. So, no, I mean, look, I don't, as I'm talking to people, especially foreign players, RSL or Salt Lake City or Utah being a destination that they, for whatever reason may not want to come to doesn't really come up. I think when people see the mountains and see the community and see the facilities and see the fans, like, in a game, like there's rarely do I get anything but positive feedback from prospective players. I think in sometimes these situations, what plays into it is if you've got a foreign player who's got an agent and neither of them is as familiar as they should be with the contract they signed and MLS in particular, then you get these situations where some confusion can develop and bad advice and bad decisions are made. So I think it's more to do with probably that than Salt Lake as a location, as a community, as a place than anything.
All right, Kurt, before I set you loose, and I know you already know this, but I'm going to point it out, the MLSsoccer.com power rankings in pro soccer for our domestic league, RSL at 17, San Jose at 18. Huh? I know you've already read this. I mean, I know you already know this. I'm just reminding
No,
you.
I don't read it until Trey reads it to me every day.
You know what? I want Trey to read me the MLS power rankings before I go to sleep every night. I think that would be a
Yeah.
wonderful bedtime story. So I know Trey has let you know that you guys are 17 and San Jose is 18. Tongue in cheek, obviously. What do you know about San Jose? You know, Bruce Arena in charge. Obviously, he's a legend. He's a guy that you know, I'm sure, throughout the course of your MLS journey. We've already talked about, the fact that they have Chicho and a bunch of new players who I know nothing about. So, what are you guys up against tomorrow night against San Jose?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, it's Bruce has come in and he's had a ton of success everywhere he's been. Flipping over rosters, changing tactics, giving players sort of the freedom to express themselves and managing them really well, managing high profile players really well. So, do we know exactly what they're going to look like? I mean, no, we don't, because I don't know that they know exactly what they're going to look like tomorrow or in 6 months. But it's going to be a lot different from last year. There's a lot of different faces, and obviously they're going to set up differently and play a style that's different than last year. They've got two strikers that are probably not used to playing with another striker of their sort of level at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of works together. They've got a lot of high priced or high cost attacking talent that they need to squeeze onto the field at the same time. And, it's our job to just execute our game plan and exploit the flaws in that idea. But, I think they're going to come in with a different setup. They might come with three in the back. They might come with four. Bruce is typically like a 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2 type of guy with maybe this setup, but he could easily play with three in the back in like a 3-4-1-2 type of setup, depending on how he deploys his wide guys and his wing backs. So it just depends on his preference on the day and how he feels he gets the best players in the field. But how we deal with it is gonna be the same regardless.
Kurt, you are the man. I'll be pulling for you tomorrow as always. So I appreciate the time. Have a great weekend. Okay.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, Kurt Schmidt. RSL opens up MLS play coming up tomorrow against San Jose. Bruce Arena is in charge of San Jose now, and they have Chicho Arango. Josef Martinez has been acquired as well. So those are big-time strikers on paper. RSL hopefully can continue the road success they've had under Pablo. Our guy, Pobs, good vibes guy, getting some points on the road. Kurt brought to you today by Overtime Cards and Collectibles. Go into Overtime. And I want to tell you about one of my favorite new clients. So Michelle and Chris, they are great people. Overtime Cards and Collectibles in Sandy is the best spot for all your football, basketball, hockey, MMA, and even Pokemon card collecting. You can buy all your favorites there, from rare sports cards to local legends and hard-to-find Pokemon cards. With it being 2025, start a new and fun hobby of collecting cards, and there's no better spot to do it than my friends at Overtime Cards and Collectibles. Check them out online at overtimecardsandcollectibles.com. Or you can buy and trade or go out to their new location at 10673 South State Street in Sandy. They're great people, man. Michelle and Chris are awesome. I've known them for a long, long time. And if you are of a certain age, maybe around my age, you probably at one point collected sports cards, right? Do you know where they're at now? Are they in your basement? Are they in your mom's cellar? Whatever it is. My recommendation is going to grab your collection, then take it out to Overtime Cards, because I did that. And Chris found a Kobe Bryant Fleer rookie card in my collection that I honestly either forgot that I had or didn't even know. Now it's sitting on my mantle, and hopefully at some point it can provide a down payment for my son's house. That's the goal. So Overtime Cards and Collectibles at 10673 South State Street in Sandy. You should definitely check them out. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go on this surprisingly sunny Friday afternoon here in Salt Lake City. We'll switch gears coming up on the other side to do a little NBA with Howard Beck from The Ringer. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. You know, I realized that I've just made a terrible error with our song selection because I'm going to bring Howard back into our philosophical topic about music on the show this week. But this is a bad example because REM has aged very well, and Howard's a big REM fan. So this is my bad. I'm going to own this one.
I'm thumbs up on REM as well. But hey, we didn't say they have to have aged poorly. It was just an open-ended question.
Fair enough. Howard Beck, Friday afternoon. All right, Howard, here's the question. Porter, my producer, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, we were playing some 90s music because you and I are close to the same age. I might be older than you. I have no idea. And Porter said to me, do you feel like the music you listened to in the 90s has aged well? Now, that's a blanket statement for all 90s music. But as a fan of music as I am, 90s music, okay, now that we're here in 2025, how do you think it's aged?
Oh, man. I think well, but I also think that like we're all prisoners of our own generational pop culture. And so whether it's the music or the movies or whatever that we grew up on, it kind of ends up kind of lodging there in your being somewhere, and sentiment and nostalgia kind of creeps in. There's some stuff I think like from 80s and in particular that I don't know has held up all that well, but I still listen to it. But I have my Sirius XM subscription. I spend a lot of time listening to First Wave, which is mostly 80s new wave. I listen to Lithium, which is 90s alternative and grunge. And there's not too much stuff where I'm like, oh man, I can't hear this again. Or if it is, it's because it's a song I didn't like in the first place. So I think the 90s have aged pretty well. By and large,
I think I've landed on the same thing, but the question Porter asked me has caused me to do a deep dive. And there's certainly some 90s music that hasn't aged well, but you could probably say that for every decade. What was if you remember, when I had you on a few months back, you told me about a band you had gone to see that blew my mind. I had never heard of it before. Do you remember who the band was? I was thinking about this when I saw you. Who was it?
It was probably Airborne Toxic Event.
That's what it is. And it even sounds pretentious, right? Like, you're like, just you saying that, it sounds pretentious. But I haven't checked them out, and I think I need to.
It's a reference from a Don DeLillo novel called White Noise, which became a movie a couple of years ago. It was a really cool movie. Adam Driver's in it. I recommend the movie. You got to go in with the right mindset, though. It's a little surrealistic. It's a little odd. The book is as well. But there is something that happens in the story that is referred to in the book and the movie as the Airborne Toxic Event. And the lead singer of the Airborne Toxic Event, Michael Jolet, LA native, Laker fan, and somebody I've gotten to be friends with via social media. He's a big reader. He's a big literary guy. And so he named his band after that reference.
Now you're referencing an indie film starring Adam Driver. That's even worse. That even sounds more pretentious, Howard.
And I've referenced the fact that I'm friends with the lead singer of the band. Yeah. So yeah, I'm I couldn't be more playing to your description and image of me as being a pretentious hipster. I'm sorry.
Well, you are the hippest NBA writer around, but as we've talked about, that bar is low. Anyway, Let's move on, Howard. How about that?
Sure.
Okay. Fair enough. You were, we talked to you last week, and you were in the Bay Area, so you attended the All-Star events. How much did you take in live? And your thoughts on what, to me, has just turned into an undigestible weekend?
Well, here's the thing about All-Star Weekend. It's chaos even at its best, and the benefits for somebody in my position as a reporter are always there regardless. Whatever happens in the events, I will still have a good time. I will see friends. I will see people I need to schmooze with and do some networking. I'll eat well. And if it's in San Francisco, I will just be very, very happy that I'm in San Francisco and not in maybe other cities. And especially because it was not like 15 degrees the way it was, saying like the one near Toronto. I love Toronto, but we all nearly died of hypothermia that weekend. It was also super cold the weekend. It was in New York, my backyard. So just being in California, as a California native, a Bay Area native, I loved it. In terms of the events, look, we're going to do this every year. We're going to do this every single year until and unless things just magically change. Every year we are going to talk about what's wrong with All-Star Weekend. I will just say this as a first premise before we dive in. it was no better or worse than it has been for the last several years that we've been complaining about All-Star Weekend, and we can go from there.
Okay. Fair enough. A couple things here. Actually, let me ask this as a follow-up. Because you said, you're in San Francisco, you're in California, better than some cities where the All-Star Game has been. Well, it was here 2 years ago. I know you.
I loved it because I got to go skiing in Park City, so I was very happy to be there.
Oh, I know you did. And, we already talked about it, but I want you to tell me the truth. What is the reaction from you and your peers when you get the release like, hey, NBA All-Star Weekend, Salt Lake City 2023 or whatever it was? What's the honest reaction from people? I got to know.
Oh man, we're going to go right to the provincial. Let's just reinforce all of the chip on the shoulder provincial reactions that everybody in every small town in the NBA has on these things.
Porter, did you hear him say small town? Did you hear that?
I did.
Okay, sorry. Keep going.
It is. It's a small town. The Sacramento does this, San Antonio does this, Memphis does this, Indianapolis. Every small market in the NBA has this huge chip on their shoulder. Nobody respects us. Nobody likes us. The league doesn't want to put us on TV. They're trying to steal all of our stars. Everybody's out to get us. The referees are out to get us. The media is out to get us. I've been doing this a while. I know the routine, and you're walking me right into it. Yeah, I think a lot of people might have wrinkled their noses at that one, but not as much as they wrinkled their noses when they saw Indianapolis pop up, because Salt Lake City's beautiful. The surroundings are beautiful, and people like me who are just look at it as an opportunity to go skiing, I totally fine. But Indy, I had what am I doing in Indy? I'm going to St. Elmo's. I mean, I don't know what else there is there. So some places more than others. To be honest, the real reaction is that for a very long stretch there, for whatever reason, the NBA kept awarding the All-Star Game to cold places. And so we had like a 5-6 year stretch, it seemed like, of just blistering cold places. Like Chicago's a great city, but Chicago in February blows. Like that's not a pleasant place to be. And so the fact that it's finally like in San Francisco and next year in LA and the year after that in Phoenix. I'm not a big Arizona guy, but like going somewhere warm in February instead of freezing our tails off year after year after year. We had Cleveland. There's another one. By the way, if we're measuring the degree to which people are wrinkling their noses when they see the All-Star announcement, Cleveland and Indy probably both a harsher reaction than Salt Lake.
Porter, please.
How's that for placating?
It's great. Porter, could you please contact the Chamber of Commerce and tell them I've come up with a new motto for our city? It's Salt Lake City, but at least we're not Cleveland or Indianapolis. Will you please contact the Chamber of Commerce?
I'll get a graphic put up.
Okay, thank you very much. No, Howard, you have to understand the chip on the shoulder situation out here, the inferiority complex that we have out here, it's what has made us. We have no other choice. It's who we are now.
I get it. But like I say, unless you think it's unique to you, it's not. I swear there are versions of this with every small market that I happen into or talk to radio hosts in. It's a common thing in the NBA.
Okay, fair enough. All right, moving off this, now let's get to the actual events. Before I give you my little diatribe, what was if I asked you for a snapshot moment, like your favorite moment, whether it's a dunk, whether it's an event, a game, what was your favorite moment from the weekend?
If we're going to stick to on the court, Mac McClung dazzled again. Mac McClung dunking over a car, and this time, unlike Blake Griffin, who's way bigger than Mac McClung and much more of a star, Blake Griffin jumped over the hood. Mac jumped over the whole thing and got the ball coming out of the moonroof. He was great. I don't know how many years in a row Mac McClung can single-handedly save the dunk contest from oblivion. 3 seems like probably the upper limit, and we're at 3. But that's it. There's not really a lot of other highlights. I might as well veer here. I will speak in defense of the new Sunday format within certain parameters because it showed promise. And I know everybody's down on it. But it seems to me, and I was in the arena, so I'm not seeing the commercials. I'm not seeing the production. I'm not seeing how, like I know for a lot of people who watched on TV, it seemed like this thing really, really dragged. Not as bad in the arena, but then I'm not being exposed to quite as much Kevin Hart and everything else, although he was on in the arena too, which was just a ridiculous concept. But the tournament, the 40-point target score, the individual 3 games instead of 1 3-hour slog of a 48-minute exhibition, there was some promise there. Guys came out, especially Wembanyama and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, some of the others. They did try. They were competing for a while. It was a demonstrably more competitive product than anything we've seen in years in the traditional All-Star game. And if they can just build on that, get rid of Kevin Hart, don't interrupt a championship game with a 20-minute tribute to TNT or anybody else, all due respect to those guys. They could have done it between games instead. Get the production down. Keep this thing moving. Don't interrupt the competition, because the players did seem to respond to the new format and were starting to give a little more effort this year than we'd seen in years. And they can build on that if they can just clean up the production.
You know what? You don't need my diatribe. I don't know if you listen to the program, but that's essentially exactly where I landed. Like, I could not imagine Howard being a player, let alone a player in their mid to late 30s, where you go hard for whatever, 10, 15 minutes, and then they're like, hey, sit down because we're going to do 30 minutes of Kevin Hart making fun of Shaq's turtleneck. Like, yeah. And by the way, you're trying to avoid injuries. Like, every owner or GM has the same concern when they're players at All-Star Weekend or at the Olympics. Like, are they going to get hurt? It's the exact opposite of being cautious when you have players on Shaq's team that are stars in the league that are in their mid to late 30s. And by the way, like you, I'm set with the Inside the NBA tributes. I'm all set with it because I've watched the documentaries. I've seen it left and right. And I honestly even felt like Ernie was a little felt like there was kind of cringy, felt like it was a little bit awkward when he took the mic. He's like, why are we doing this? So what gives with the entire production that clearly was counter to what the consumer wants? And I just don't think Kevin Hart's funny. Maybe that's just me on an island. And then also you're doing a disservice to your players. Like, Jokic was asked about, like, what'd you do during the break? He's like, I got tight. Like, it's beyond explanation, in my opinion.
We hadn't even mentioned the Mr. Beast thing besides.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, like, just don't do that. If you're going to bring out Mr. Beast, make it a 6-minute thing and not a 20-minute thing. If you're going to do a TNT tribute or tribute to anybody else, again, keep it tight, keep it moving, do it between games. They just screwed up the whole presentation. Like, again, if we're just talking about the game, and I know, like, a lot of people were counting, there were X number of minutes of actual basketball in the 3-hour window. I'm guessing if you went and looked at past All-Star games, it wouldn't be all that much different. It's always larded down with a lot of commercials and other nonsense. But I think what happened with the NBA this weekend was they lacked the conviction in their own idea. It was, what if we do this new thing and nobody thinks the basketball is good enough? We better get some other gimmicks in there, and we need to pander to young people. So let's bring out Mr. Beast. And I don't know who they're pandering to with Kevin Hart. They're pandering to Kevin Hart, apparently. But, like, you don't need it. Also, when you're trying to get guys to compete again and treat this semi-seriously, and then you're going to bring out a guy whose sole purpose there is to just make fun of everybody and not very well, it just made no sense. So I know that they have to pay the bills. I know that they got to make money off this thing. I know they got to have commercials. I know that the commercials then require breaks. But I don't know, sacrifice, 20,000 here and there and shorten this thing up. It shouldn't take 3 hours. It does, and have faith in your product enough to not need Mr. Beast or Kevin Hart or whatever other stuff they jammed in there.
So is there anything that we can learn? Because we've seen international versus domestic players before. They've tried that format before. Giannis talking about maybe moving it overseas. Can we do like a Rocky versus Drago where LeBron is running in the snow to try to train to play the international players? And the Four Nations face-off, maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment, and obviously hockey is different than basketball, was just gripping television. Now, I am of the opinion that you will never make these guys care about this game ever again. And I know I get on my soapbox about this, but the difference between the conversation, if you juxtapose it to the Pro Bowl, is that the Pro Bowl was never good. The All-Star game was awesome for like 30 years, and I went to a lot of them. It was the best pickup basketball game in the world. Is there any way that we can recapture that? Or is it time just to admit, like, hey, this is just a weekend that's probably not going to be that awesome?
Well, the U.S. versus the world thing doesn't work in the NBA very well because of the 24 All-Stars that were on the rosters, only 5 were international players, 6 if you count Karl Anthony Towns, 7 if you count Kyrie, who was born in Australia. Like, if you're going to have U.S. versus the world, you're going to have way more snubs on the U.S. side, and you're going to have to go down to the Dennis Schroeders of the world to fill out the international side potentially. It wouldn't work. So having the 24 players divided into 3 teams of 8 actually sort of worked because the way Kenny, Shaq, and Chuck did it was that they did have a team that had mostly international and one that had mostly older vets and one that had mostly younger stars. So there was some method to the madness there. Having the 4th team be rookie sophomores is a little weird, but whatever. Yes, everybody has concluded that it's almost impossible to get players to play hard again. This generation does not want to play the way that Kobe and Dwayne Wade did when Dwayne Wade broke Kobe's nose, or the way that Jordan did back in the day, or the Iverson versus Marbury showdown in 2001. Those days are gone. You can tune in, find old All-Star games, and they're far more interesting, competitive than modern day. So the whole trick is to get guys to care just enough, to try harder. And that's why I think the target score works, because you can get to 40 really quickly in today's NBA. And the second the ball goes up in those games, it's a race to see who gets there first. Whereas a 48-minute slog, which they've become, there's no urgency at all. And no one's going to play defense. No one's going to compete. They might down the stretch, but I think the targets, it's all about a psychological game. You're trying to fool them into playing a little harder right out of the gate. And there's nothing else that's going to do it, right? No amount of money, they already make a ton of money. No amount of free cars, which is what Shaq told me last week he would do, put a Maybach on the court and say whoever wins gets the Maybach. I think that was for the dunk contest. But there is nothing else. And then it's the same thing with can you get stars into the dunk contest, right? The dunk contest is on life support again. I don't know if Mac McClung's going to go for a 4th year, but if he doesn't, what do we have left? We had 2 rookies and a second-year guy, and none of them did anything particularly memorable. Stephon Castle was pretty good, but people do want to see stars in the dunk contest. Ja Morant tweeted something about saying, maybe I'll do it finally, and Giannis said, if you do it, I'll do it. And, all right, guys, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And I don't that to me is the bigger problem. I don't know if the dunk contest can be saved. At least with the Sunday event, the game, the tournament, whatever, I think they found an outline of something that can work, again, if they just clean up the production side.
All right, final thing on this. Then I've got one question for you before I set you loose. And I am not a LeBron hater. I am not. I never have been. Because when you look at what he has done throughout the course of his career, being told at the age of 17, you are next, and living up to all that and more is remarkable. The LeBron story is amazing. But I thought what he did over the weekend was such a bad look. Showing up, and suddenly we're watching the introductions, and he's the last one to be introduced because, of course, and then he's in street clothes. And I've heard a bunch of different, conspiracy theories, things going around as to why he did it. I just think he likes the spotlight, and I don't think he gives a rip about playing in games like this. The issue I have is say something so one of the players who was on the back burner and didn't make it can be your replacement and therefore probably trigger a mechanism in his contract to get a couple of extra $100,000, whether you like that or not. It's part of the landscape of the league. So I thought that was a really bad look from LeBron. And then the whole hey, he's questionable for the Hornets game. No, he's not. He was playing the entire time. You're further in the narrative that he was hurt when he wasn't. My opinion, what's yours?
It was, very last minute and a surprise when he announced on Sunday that he wasn't going to play. He was given dispensation by the league for however many years in a row to not be available when the rest of the players were available Saturday. So he spoke Sunday on his own. Fine. There's a certain part of this, Spence, where I think, you know what? The guy's one of the greatest of all time, by some accounts, the greatest. People will debate that. And he's in his 22nd year and he's 40. There's a little bit of this where I'm like, you know what? Dude's earned it, but he should have done this differently. He should have announced that he wasn't going to play ahead of time, to your point, and have somebody else be able to take his place if he wasn't going to play. It's not like he got hurt while he was in San Francisco. So that was a little cheesy. And then they're trying this new tournament format for the first time. Like, do the league a solid and put on the uniform, go out for the first couple minutes at least, and then we've seen this before where guys make a cameo in the All-Star game because they're nursing some bump or bruise. But you do the league a solid by putting on your jersey. You go out there, you play a couple of minutes, you wave to the crowd, and that's it. But to not play, especially in a year where they're trying something new. And by the way, he's on a roster with Steph and KD, the three faces of this era of the NBA. And this was probably, or at least possibly, the last time we'd see the three of them together as teammates. And on an all-star team, that would have been fun. That would have been meaningful. And so we were robbed of that. So that's unfortunate too.
Final thing, Howard, before I set you loose, I don't know when this happened to Victor Wembanyama. I mean, like I talked about, when you are constructing a roster, if you own a team, your biggest fear when one of your best players goes to an all-star weekend or an international competition is that an injury could occur. And maybe with something like a blood clot, I have no idea. And I'm not going to be one of those. I have found great entertainment at listening to media dudes talk like they're doctors after reading a WebMD description of all this. I'm not going to do it. But when I heard about the blood clot, my first thought was Bosch, which of course is worst case scenario. We have precedent, Brandon Ingram, Asar Thompson last year. So hopefully this is just a little bit of a blip and a moment in time and not anything serious. But what's your reaction and what's your understanding about what the process will entail now?
Well, he has to go on blood thinners, and for I think it's usually for like 3 months is the treatment. It's the blood thinners that make you then susceptible to other more dangerous things, and that's why you don't play a contact sport when you're on blood thinners, right? So that's the thing. But everything out of San Antonio so far, and everything by all the doctors who have been quoted in various places, just as experts on the condition, not on Wemby particularly, have all said like there's no reason to think that this is going to be career-threatening in any way. It was with Bosch. That was a specific set of circumstances, and it was unfortunate. And that's where my mind went to initially. In the near term, it's just a big bummer because he was having an incredible season. The Spurs, I thought, were on course to maybe crash the play-in. I thought that would happen. Now it probably won't. And, we're robbed of one of the great young players for the second half of the season. And that's a bummer. And, I said this on the Real Ones podcast today, that I thought part of this too, as I started to spin this forward in my own head, like Chris Paul could retire. So this might be the end of the mentorship of Chris Paul and Wemby, which I thought was actually very productive for them this year. It's cutting short the early stages of De'Aaron Fox, who was just acquired, building his chemistry with Wemby. They've got plenty of time, but still. If they had the next couple of months to play together, then get in the play-in maybe, have some meaningful games, that would have been really cool for a young team starting to find itself. And so all that's out the window. And then the other thing, and again, his health is first and foremost, to be very, very clear. But I think he's going to be fine. Everything we've heard, he's going to be fine. He'll be back next season. But this also pulls him off the board for any of the postseason awards. He was, certainly the betting leader for Defensive Player of the Year. He would have been all-defensive team. He would have been in play for all NBA for sure. And because of the minimum games requirements for those things at 65, he's going to fall way, way short of that. So he's, you can wipe that all off the board. None of that matters nearly as much as his health. And so, you just wish him the best. But again, there's no reason to think that he's not going to be back next season.
Really excited to watch the young front court of Victor Wembanyama and Cooper Flagg evolve over the next decade. That's what's going to happen. It's the most Spurs thing of all time.
I mean, they sort of have that history of luck. But yeah, we'll see. I think where they are in the tank standings now, in the lottery standings now, it's going to be hard for them to get too far up there in terms of the odds. But the odds, of course, are flatter these days. And the NBA did that to disincentivize teams to tank. But the result of that is that there's more likelihood than there used to be of possibly jumping up from the 7th or the 8th or the 9th spot. So who knows? And if it's not Cooper Flagg, then maybe they're getting Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey or one of the other, hot young prospects. And yeah, that would not be wouldn't be a shocker because they did this and they got Tim Duncan, they got Wemby, and who knows? Maybe history repeats.
Howard, you are the man. Appreciate you gracing this small little town out west with your presence on a Friday. You have a great weekend, Bo. We'll chat soon, okay?
You too, Spence. Take care.
All right, the great Howard Beck now with the Ringer. He has been at a number of different places, including the New York Times, Sports Illustrated, the LA Times as well. Always been one of my favorites to interview and also to read. At Howard Beck is where you find him on social. Brought to you today by our friends at Burt Brothers. With over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations, Burt Brothers ASC certified technicians bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction. Industry-leading warranties and low-price tire guarantees. One-stop shop for reliable repairs and maintenance, from tires and alignments to fluids and brakes, offering a full range of automotive services tailored to meet your needs. Now offering value tire options such as Americus and Summit tires, starting at just $69 with warranties that go up to 70,000 miles. As one of the few AAA certified shops in Utah, Burt Brothers upholds the highest standards in automotive service. Stop by Burt Brothers or Tire Busters locations or schedule an appointment today to experience the trusted service that has made them a Utah favorite for over 3 decades. Burt Brothers, doing it better since day one. Check them out online at burtbrothers.com. All right, coming up on the other side, we switch gears from basketball to hockey. Tom Callahan stops by. We will talk about the Four Nations final. We'll do a little Utah Hockey Club. Then we're going to bring in Sean Mooney for some college hoops and Paul Pugmire for a little golf on a busy Friday show. Happy Friday to you. Keep it right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. Four Nations face-off final last night. Canada got it done in overtime. And I am still buzzing from the event, not just last night, but I thought the tournament caught a lot of people off guard in the best of ways. Oftentimes, that's how life works. Our next guest, I've never interviewed him before. We'll do a little hockey, a little Utah Hockey Club, and obviously the Four Nations face-off with Tom Callahan on a Friday afternoon. Tom, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
Oh, my goodness. It's Friday. I love it. I'm doing well. Thank you.
I appreciate the time today. I got to ask you, how many corny Tommy Boy jokes have you received over the years?
All of them.
Okay,
actually.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. See, we were debating whether or not we wanted to bring that up, and I'm like, no, with a name like Tom Callahan, my man has heard this like his entire life. So it's good that we didn't lead with that.
You know what? I mean, it's funny. I like to tell people I heard the movie twice before I ever saw it. Because people just, they love giving me the lines to it. But, I mean, it's a classic for a reason, right? So it's not all bad.
Yeah, you certainly have the name that is tied to a great movie, which I suppose is a benefit. But, Tom, since I've never interviewed you before, tell me about yourself, kind of growing up in this business, how you kind of latched onto the NHL and what you're doing now, and let's go from there.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Buffalo, New York. So big Bills fan growing up, still big Bills fan. And grew up rooting for the Buffalo Sabres as well, and just always loved hockey. Once I figured out I wasn't good at baseball, I was like 12. I ended up playing hockey year round. It was just my favorite thing to do. And so eventually, go to college and try to figure out what you want to do with your life. I ended up calling games and spent 9 years in the minor leagues, calling hockey and baseball, and doing the occasional one-off here and there for like football or basketball. But then made it to the NHL with Nashville. Did 5 years of play-by-play with the Nashville Predators. And after that, I went from the Predators over to ESPN Nashville, actually. Did 3 years as a host there. And then, like a fool, decided I missed hockey. Wanted to go back to calling games. So I moved to Indianapolis and then Tucson. And I missed it. With Tucson, that's where the whole Coyotes thing comes in. Is I was working for the Coyotes there. I had a chance to start up the Tucson Roadrunners in a pretty high capacity. So I was pretty excited about that. Unfortunately, that didn't last because when the franchise was sold, that all kind of fell apart. But, it was a great experience. I loved it. Spent 2 years in the Coyotes organization and met some fantastic people along the way. And, just now, post-pandemic and everything kind of coming back online with hockey, I'd been looking for a chance to cover an NHL team again. And that's how I ended up with the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, where I'm a co-host with Robin Leonio. And, it was easy for me. It's a franchise I already knew with some people I still knew in the franchise and have been watching now for the better part of, 9 years.
Very nice, very nice. So I am also a child of the Northeast, the mean streets of Fairfield County, Connecticut, and grew up going to Madison Square Garden to watch the New York Rangers. And they're still my team to this day. So you and I are Northeast boys, which is always good. But let's talk about this smash hit, this Four Nations face-off tournament. According to the reports from BetMGM, DraftKings, and FanDuel, all three sportsbooks said it is the highest betted on hockey event of all time by total tickets. And we just have the ratings spilling in. I guessed that it would scratch 10 million. It came close, 9.3 mil, which is the highest watched hockey game of all time outside of Olympic hockey. So by all accounts, Tom, this has been an unbelievable boom for this sport. Give me your thoughts on it. And I also want to know, prior to the event starting, what did you anticipate? Because we have Neil Smith on weekly to talk hockey. And before it started, Neil, who was the general manager of a Stanley Cup winning team, said that he was not really excited for this, didn't think it was going to be great. When we had him on Wednesday, he ate his crow. What were you anticipating, and what are your thoughts on how it kind of manifested?
Well, the first thing I'll say is, boy, doesn't that get you excited for the Winter Olympics for Salt Lake?
For sure.
How pumped are you now just thinking down the road for that? But you know what? It's kind of funny because being around hockey and being a very vocal Team USA guy, mostly on a team full of Canadians for most of the time I've been around the sport, you take your good-natured ribbing and your not so good-natured ribbing. But I mean, I've never played for Team USA, but it's important to me, especially when they go up against Canada. Beating Russia or Finland or Sweden is nice, but beating Canada is a must for me when it comes to Team USA and the sport of hockey, and really any sport. But that's where the rivalry is, right? Canada really says, hey, this is our sport. And the U.S., especially in World Juniors lately and in a lot of other ways, has been clawing a lot of that away. So Canada had a lot on the line for this. The U.S. had a lot on the line for this. And quite honestly, not that Sweden and Finland weren't good rosters, but I think it was obvious going into the tournament, Canada and the U.S. were the class of the tournament. So the fact that they met in the final was not a shock. I think what was a shock to me, I didn't know what we were going to get. I know that the blood boils for these players when they play one another, but I also wondered if because it's an All-Star game replacement and you know that you have to be a teammate with the guy wearing the other sweater in another week, are you going to hold up on him? Are you not going to put him through the glass? Like, I wondered how that would pan out. Then we got 3 fights in 9 seconds, and that answered my question. In that first time that Canada and the U.S. met, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's on. Gloves are off, and literally. And it was great. I loved it. I think that a lot of people were very excited by it, and I think it brought some needed attention to the sport right now. If I could take a broader tack for just a moment, media rights are all over the map right now, Spence, and this is something that I'm keeping a close eye on. I've always been a sports media junkie, but ESPN and MLB are getting a divorce now. Formula One is leaving, and I'm a big F1 guy, is leaving ESPN, and a lot of rights are coming up, and it just seems like at the moment, and with all the RSNs going down, it's a very tenuous moment for sports in general to be carried over any medium. So I'm kind of wondering, hey, how important is this going to be? The fact that we really got some big time attention to this game, and do you keep this format? It was successful. Next year, obviously, you have the Winter Olympics, but is this something that maybe you try to go and expand the format to maybe do another team that's Team Europe as a catch-all for the guys that maybe don't have a country to play for? But I think they finally hit on something that, quite frankly, brought some attention back to an all-star game. Baseball is all about the home run derby, not so much the game. Basketball, it's the dunk and the three-point, and nobody cares about the game. And football, I can't tell you the last time I watched a Pro Bowl. I think I was still a kid. So I think it's a great injection into the sport.
So since you are a sports media junkie, how did the Kurt Russell playing Herb Brooks Miracle on Ice speech land with you? Did you think that was the right move, or did you think it was incredibly corny and also a bit misguided because they're two very different situations?
Absolutely two different situations. I was actually a little surprised that popped up. I understand the illusion, but yeah, I mean, that was 1980. That was USA versus Russia. And for folks who don't know and you're kind of wondering where that came from, it's from the movie Miracle, which kind of, details as much as it can. It's like a little bit of historical fiction around the United States winning the gold medal. But, Kurt Russell did a tremendous job playing Herb Brooks. Talk to anybody who knew Herb, and they felt he was channeling Herb. Very important speech. Very important moment in United States history. Do I think that the USA-Russia game had anywhere near the importance of that game last night? No. And I thought that was out of place. But again, I mean, look what we're dealing with here. I mean, it's a Disney-funded movie. ABC, ESPN, Disney, they own the rights to the speech. Gives them a chance to revive a kind of a movie that nobody's talked about for a long time, maybe give it a little extra life and a bit of a boost, and maybe somebody watches on Disney Plus. I understand why they did it. I wouldn't have done it.
Tell me your thoughts, because every time I hear Sean McDonough call a game, I'm like, this dude doesn't get enough credit for what a master he is at his craft. So give me your thoughts, Tom, on the actual broadcast and how that was handled.
ESPN does. I almost think ESPN is a little guilty of doing too much. They're trying so hard. You know what I mean? And I don't mind McDonough's call at all. I enjoy listening to those guys, and maybe I'm probably a little more critical having actually done the job than most people would be. But I don't think there's anything wrong with their personalities that they have, and especially when they let them stretch their legs a little bit, even in the intermission with Subban and Messier, and letting those guys be who they are. Is everybody's trying to catch that magic that the NBA on TNT has, right? Like that's what everybody wants. They want that, whatever that thing that Barkley and Shaq and Ernie and all those guys have, and everybody's trying to capture that lightning in a bottle. ESPN's trying that. What I don't like about ESPN is how they really graphically overload the broadcast. I wish they'd let it breathe a little more. There's always a pop-up marker, and this guy's here, that guy's here, and here's where the puck and the shot and the stats and the thing. And I'm like, holy cow, guys, can we just watch a game? And I don't know, maybe that's just me being a little more old school, I think. I just wish they'd lay out with some of that stuff sometimes, but they're trying to come up with a formula, that's for sure.
Okay, fair enough. No, I'm genuinely curious. I've never called a hockey game in my life. I've watched a grip of them, but since you have, I'm curious as to what your thoughts were on that. So, Tom, whenever, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to anybody, but if it's not football or basketball or baseball, the fringe sports outside of the big three, whether it's hockey or soccer or whatever, whenever there's a moment like this, and this feels real to me, it feels different. And the 1980 Miracle on Ice led to a lot of people watching hockey in a way they hadn't prior to. It led to a lot of parents putting their children in hockey in a way that we hadn't seen that prior to. And as you referenced, the U.S. just won the World Juniors, and a lot of people drawing a straight line between the interest that was generated in 1980 and the evolution of the hockey that is played in our country. Does this feel like the same type of seminal moment? I mean, Eruzione, that was cool. I'll tell you that. Like when he walked out, I'm like, yes, very nice. I thought that was really cool. But he said the buzz in that building reminded him of that game in 1980. And Eruzione can be a little performative, as we know. But for a guy that's been in this game for a while and a hockey historian, does this have the same type of juice? And what do you think this can do for pro hockey in America?
Did it have the same juice? No. The juice I would compare it to, and it's funny you mentioned that because I was one of those kids that got on the ice after the gold medal game. I started playing hockey in 1981. So that kind of tells you where I come into the equation. I was a child of that boom. So I understand that completely. What I would actually compare this to is a couple different games. Number one, the last time the Winter Olympics were in Salt Lake, and that game there where Sidney Crosby wins it in overtime. That was 2010. And then Salt Lake Olympics. I think both of those were big, and also the 1996. So it's really three moments, and the 1996 World Cup of Hockey. I think all three of those were important. I think they were best on best. They were a great showcase for the sport. And what happens is when you get people who don't normally watch the sport and then they follow through, and the timing on this is perfect because we're about to hit the trade deadline and the playoff race in earnest. And there's nothing like playoff hockey. And I think people will stick around for a month or two and watch the playoffs this year. So, yeah, it's going to grow the game. It's going to grow interest in it. Youngsters are going to want to play. Is it going to be the explosion of 1980? I don't know, simply because the U.S. won the gold. You know what I mean? It's hard to top that. But I do think we're in a different day and age where the people who are now going to be reached by this, it's not going to be this explosion of a moment that happened on TV and then people talk about it for months. This is going to be something where it's going to be highlights on your phone. It's going to be on NHL.com or on your team's webpage. Guys are going to be talking about coming back from four nations. This is going to be the topic of conversation for a while now, and we're going to easily be able to recall those moments through video. So, I think it is going to be a boost. I have a hard time comparing anything to 1980, to be honest with you.
Yeah, totally fair. And I was only 2, so I don't have memories of it, but it's just kind of interesting watching the reaction after this tournament that, like I said, has caught everybody off guard. All right, let's move over now to do a little Utah Hockey Club. Here's where I'll start this portion of our conversation. Now that we have seen the majority of the games played, we do this thing where it's like, hey, it's halfway, we're halfway through the season. Well, we're very much not. We were a number of weeks ago. They played 56 games. When they're successful, because it's been such an ebb and a flow, they'll go on this streak and then they can't win. They have trouble closing out games. They don't win at home, which is wild. But when they're playing their best, excuse me, what are they doing well? And when they struggle, what tends to happen?
So all those are excellent questions. And I think with the Utah Hockey Club, honestly, it's pretty easy to identify a few things that go well and go poorly. First of all, when they're playing well, special teams is doing its job. The penalty killers are taking care of business. When they're shorthanded, they kill those penalties off, and the power play produces. When Utah's power play is going, they really can get this team over the hump in a close game. And we've seen it time and time again this year. And that is one of the big things they do. Another thing that they do when they're successful, Spence, is they spend a lot of time with the puck. Their puck possession numbers are good. Their forecheck is good. So in hockey, it's not always a dump and chase. You don't always throw it in the corner and go get it, but a lot of times you do. Or you have a way to enter the zone. When their zone entry plays are good and they maintain possession off of those, or their dump and chase and that forecheck results in them maintaining possession of the puck, that's when they're playing well. And when they don't do that, when they turn the puck over going into the offensive zone, or when they don't come back up with it, when they don't win the battles on the wall, that's when they're playing poorly. So to answer the poorly side of the equation, it's that. And then it is also defensive lapses. I've taken to calling them naps. A lot of people, if you listen to the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, you've heard me talk about the naps. They take naps. They just blow coverages. They lose their energy and enthusiasm and momentum, and they sleepwalk a couple of shifts. And inevitably, the puck ends up in the back of the net. They're just not consistent when they're losing. They don't give you that same effort, shift in, shift out. Is part of that being a young team? Yes. Is part of that the fact that, they've gone through all these injuries this year? Yes. But those are reasons, not excuses. And I think that, if this team is ever going to make the playoffs, and they certainly have the ability to, they just need to be far more consistent than they've been.
So help me understand their, at times, inability to close. And maybe you just outlined some of the issues they have when it comes to the defensive lapses, because there have been, and I've been 5 games at home, and I try to tune into every game when they're on the road. And oftentimes they'll enter the third period. I'm like, they got a shot. And then so many times they just tend to blow it. Is it youth? Is it lack of execution? Why is this team struggling to close when they have a lead or close in that third period?
So there's 3 reasons why teams fail. It's GM, coach, and players, right? Because those are really the 3 places where you get the contact in the games. I believe in Bill Armstrong and the way he's building a team. I like his philosophy. I don't think that's it. Andre Tourney is doing a good job as a coach. I don't think his seat is warm in any way. Plus, he seems to have a very good relationship with Bill Armstrong. So I don't necessarily think that they don't like what he's doing. So to me, it kind of boils down to the players and their consistency. Some guys, like it or not, just for whatever reason, cannot apply themselves for that 60 minutes. And it's not that they're not gifted. Some guys take risks. Some guys are so gifted that they believe they can cover for themselves and always recover. And you know what? You can't in 100% of those situations. You can sometimes. And when it works out, it's awesome, right? You score this dynamic goal. The roof comes off the building. Everybody's fired up. But then there's every other time. And I think that that's what it is. It's managing the risks. But each person has to kind of come to that reconciliation on their own as a player. And again, I mean, look, I don't think this is the final form or shape of this team that's going to be in the playoffs 2 years from now. I don't. And it's going to change again at the trade deadline coming up here. So they're figuring it out. They're putting it together. And, for the first time, we're going to see what the defense actually looks like. We haven't seen what it looks like, what we've been told it would be since October.
You alluded to my next question, which is that trade deadline on March the 7th. And, I talk about this anecdote on air quite a bit. I thought it was so funny when we had the opening kind of press conference arrival event down at the Delta Center. And, Spicy Tuna's doing his thing, and the crowd's going crazy, and everybody's pumped. And Bill Armstrong is like, "Hey, everybody knows that we're rebuilding, right? Like everybody's aware, like exactly what the deal is." And I thought it was so funny. And like you, I've been impressed with him. They've got a bunch of draft capital. They've got assets. They have clean books, a lot like the basketball team we have here in the Jazz. Do you anticipate anything getting done prior to that March 7th deadline? And if so, generally speaking, what do you think it is?
Absolutely, and I'll encapsulate quick because I know we're coming up on the top here. There's 9 defensemen once Jersey comes back, and I'm excited to see Jersey back. I'm excited to get them as healthy as possible. But you've got Sergachev, Jersey, Marino. Those are your long-term guys. I don't think they're going anywhere. You have a couple of big expiring contracts, veterans, Robert Bortuzzo, Ian Cole. I expect them to be in play. Oli Mata, I love. I'd hate to see him go, but I understand why another team would want him because of his presence and his experience. And a couple of those guys, Bortuzzo, Cole, they've won Stanley Cups. Then you have Valimaki and Kesselring each signed for another year apiece, and Nick DeSimone, who's really impressed, come in as a 30-year-old. He's inexpensive, and I think he's done great. I'd actually like to see them extend him. So I think, yes, they're going to make a move. It's going to be on defense. One of the goalies might be in play just because of the contract situation there, and I don't rule out seeing them move forward. Maybe, there's a team that comes crawling for like a Bukestad, a Kerfoot, a Lawson Krause. I think Utah's in a position of strength. They have some cap room. They have the ability to make some move. They're going to continue to build at this trade deadline.
A radio pro, knowing that we're approaching the top, Tom. I appreciate that. Where can people go find your work, my man?
If you want, I spend most of my time on Blue Sky Now, social media. I'm at Tom Talks. I am still over on Twitter at Callahan on Air, but you got a better shot at getting me on Blue Sky. Please check out the podcast, the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, or on YouTube and anywhere you can download a podcast. And love talking hockey. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. It's been illuminating. Love to do it again, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Spence.
All right, Tom Callahan. Not that one. I'm very glad we didn't lead with the Tommy Boy stuff because when I asked him how many Tommy Boy jokes he's heard over the course of his life, and he said all of them.
Right.
I think we would have annoyed him greatly if we played like Chris Farley singing Fat Guy in a Little Coat or something.
Well, I did have to warn him just in case because I knew that I would go overboard with it. Tommy Boy was like my family's.
It's a great movie.
I feel like
day,
yearly, maybe more often, we would watch that one. And I will have to admit, I did come in with a maniac.
No, I caught that. And I just wonder how it landed with him.
It was subtle.
Because he sounds slightly annoyed. Now I have all the best Tommy Boy scenes going through my mind. When they're at the restaurant, he's like, it doesn't hurt here or here, but right about here. I don't notice anything. He's got this big gash on his face. All right, we will catch a quick break. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Our guy Sean Mooney joins us coming up next to talk some Utah men's basketball. Speaking of Utah men's basketball, text Utes right now to 33986 for a chance to win Utah men's basketball tickets. Text Utes to 33986 for your chance to win a couple of tickets to see the Utes. So Sean Mooney joins us coming up next. We're going to sneak in a little golf because, golf rules. Paul Pugmire stops by. Then we will launch into the final hour of the program on a Friday afternoon. Happy Friday to you. Keep it right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. did this intentionally to prove your point that there's some music that came out of the 90s that has clearly not aged well.
Oh, that's where you're going, huh?
Yeah, and, I'll ask you the question. We'll get our guy, Sean. We'll ask Sean this question, too. You often get people that ask you, what's the best concert you've ever been to? What if I asked you, what is the worst concert you've ever been to? Forced to go to by a significant other or a friend that's like, hey, these guys rule, and you went and it was horrible?
For me, this was a school event. I'm trying to remember the artist. It was a fairly big rap artist, but the sound was bad.
Ah, okay.
The setup was bad, and I think he was, let's say, getting ahead of the weekend.
Ah, got a little aggressive prior to the show.
It was it was not even the stuff you would hear on the radio. It was completely unrecognizable. So that was the worst. I'd have to think on that. I'll get back to you.
So the worst concert I've ever been to by far is Goo Goo Dolls. It was atrocious. And so there you go. Sean Mooney, who is close to my age. Sean, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
Thanks, Spence. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. So Porter asked me a question this week that has blown my mind, and I've been considering it all week long. So as a proud Gen Xer, I believe you're the same.
I am.
Okay, so the music you listened to in the 90s, when you were growing up, when you're Sean Mooney in his prime, man, right? How has that music aged to this day in 2025?
I mean, of course, I'm going to tell you that I think it's aged well, but I'm not sure that the 80s is everyone's cup of tea. The 90s, I was kind of busy with kids. The 80s is when I really grew my teeth. And for me, I had two friends that I hung out with, the AC/DC friends, who I liked, I still like to this day, and then Run DMC and Beastie Boys. I think they've aged well.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. And hip-hop in the 80s and 90s, that's the best era, and it's not even close, right, if we're honest?
I agree.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. How you been, Sean? Everything good?
I've been good. Yeah, I've caught a little athletics cold, but other than that, good. I took the last couple of days off, and I got some hot tea in my throat, so hopefully you guys can hear me.
That a guy. No, it actually gives you like this deep, kind of attractive baritone voice, Sean. I like it.
Thank you, Spence. Only coming from you. I appreciate that, my brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Everything's good. Everything's good. I'm excited for a little warm weather this weekend. It looks like I love the snow in the mountains for our resorts, but I'm ready to swing a golf club, Sean. I'm not going to lie.
Spence, the sunshine today is so nice. We live up underneath Mount Olympus, and I was home all day, and I shoveled like 3 times yesterday, and I'm not going to lie with you. I can't wait to get on my mountain bike.
There you go. There you go. Love it. Love it. All right. Since you and I last spoke, things are looking up in the world of Utah men's hoops. So let's do this one at a time. Okay, so Kansas rolls in. And look, I got some thoughts on the Jayhawks. And I keep saying this, and I'm being accused of diminishing what Utah and BYU did to Kansas. I'm not diminishing it. I'm just not used to seeing a Bill Self team look so confused, right? It's weird to me. But you're there courtside, so we'll do this one at a time. We'll get to the K-State win. But your takeaways from Utah's win over Kansas at the Huntsman.
I mean, first of all, I don't really understand Kansas either. I'm with you. They're confusing, and it doesn't take away. I mean, BYU put up, 91 points on them? I mean, they just simply don't block out, and I don't understand that at all. It's just a game of effort and energy when it comes to rebounding, and then, they confuse me too. They confuse Bill Self. I think he's frustrated, but our win is a big win for us. We needed it. We're coming off 2 losses. And our kids have been challenged at West Virginia, especially the seniors or the juniors, to step it up. And I think they really have spent since then.
Yeah, it's weird, and because to your point, this is a win that Utah needed, and BYU just dog walking them like that was a great look for them on national television.
Rushed them.
Yeah, but Ken Palm has the Duke Blue Devils as the best team in college basketball right now, and Kansas beat them. Kansas beat Carolina. I mean, they were the preseason #1 team. I don't know what's fallen apart for them, but what sort of wind in the sails does that give Craig and his team just to be able to say we beat the bluest of the blue bloods in this conference? Because that's what Kansas is, Sean.
Yeah, no, it's everything. I mean, listen, you get to this conference, and Kansas is the conference. They typically win the conference. Now, they haven't the last couple of years, which may say more to bringing transfers in. mercenaries, as it were, in some cases. I mean, maybe some of the old guard, and I'm not saying Bill Self is in this category, but maybe some of the old guard are having a hard time making the adjustment. It's hard. It's like coaching junior college in the sense that you have a new set of faces every single year. Maybe that is negatively impacting Kansas.
All right. So, what are your thoughts on Craig? And look, they run a lot of their offense through Lawson, which I didn't anticipate this year, right? But he is very skilled and he's very big, so he sees over the defense and he is a good passer. But leaving him in when teams are just like this, it's a slippery slope, Sean, because I feel bad for the kid. I know Craig and the way he coaches. You hear fans like he's got to practice his free throws. He's practicing his free throws, man. Like, obviously, it's a point of emphasis. But sometimes it just doesn't work for a player, no matter how much they practice. There are plenty of examples. Shaq, of course, is the best one. That's where the whole Hackett thing came from. Are you surprised that Craig continues to ride with them when teams are clearly hacking him, and it's not a good look? It could affect his confidence,
Yeah, so definitely everyone notices it. I mean, pretty much the Huntsman Center erupted in a louder, happy cheer for Lawson as he made his free throws against Kansas State than probably anything I've heard this year. I think he made 4 in a row, by the way. But yeah, I mean, it's a give or take because, on the defensive side, he's so important. And they run the ball through him often because it's hard to get a catch from a 4, 3, or 2. They get the catch from the 5 a little bit easier because they don't put pressure on it unless it's Houston, and then they put a lot of pressure on it, and you saw what happened there. But yeah, I mean, I think Craig obviously knows exactly what he's doing, and he has to get Laws out. And we go to a kind of a 4-guard lineup where KD comes in and Ez is our 5, often at the end of a game. But yeah, I can understand Kansas fouled him at 3 minutes, and they would have continued to foul him if he'd been in.
Yeah, and, part of me appreciates the confidence. And to your point, certainly against Kansas with the Dickinson kid on the other side, you need his size. I'm just concerned about him, right? I'm concerned about whether or not, the embarrassment. But he was better against K-State, and hopefully it's better moving forward. But since we brought up the K-State game, and I already asked you about Kansas, 51-28 on the boards. They just dominated him that way. But what were the main takeaways from Utah's win over K-State?
I mean, there are a couple. Number one, we haven't turned the ball over as much. We turned it over 12 times against K-State. And, K-State's an interesting squad because they play with 3 bigs. And we did a really good job in transition against them. And then to Bartles' point he made earlier in the season, Steve Bartles, we're shooting a lot of free throws at home. We're not shooting as many on the road. And my goodness, I mean, we made 23 of 30 free throws, as was 7 for 7, Spence. So we're plus 17 in makes, and we're plus 20 in attempts that Kansas State game. I mean, and then we just can I say I'll be polite. We kicked their butts on the glass. If we continue to do that, we're going to win games.
We kicked their ass on the glass. Come on, man.
Thank you.
Let's be grown-ups.
I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be that guy who comes on your show and is that guy.
Oh no, I've had people on my show drop a lot worse than that. We do not have a dump button, so we're walking a tightrope every day, Sean. You got to know. But you can say we kicked their ass. Kicked their ass on the glass.
Kicked their ass for sure.
There you go. Give me your thoughts on, and I revisit this with you every week because I am genuinely curious, and maybe there's nothing here, but it does still feel like the rotation is a little bit in flux and a little bit inconsistent, or is it just it's whatever the night needs? It looks like he's locked in on starting 5, but rotationally, tell me what you've noticed over the past couple of games.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. It's what the night brings, and a lot of it has to do with Phil. But one of the things the fans don't know about, and Spence, you probably know, they're using a company called HDI, and this company is used by a lot of teams that are very successful, including Olympic teams, basketball teams, and basically they give analysis on 8-game spurts. So as opposed to getting carried away with like a game that a player plays really well, they help the coaches see what combinations are the best in terms of points per possession. Coach Smith talks about that a lot, and what works best in terms of holding a team to points per possession. So there are a lot of factors that go into it, but one of the factors is just who we're playing, how they're playing, if they get in foul trouble. And the fact that we have 10, 11 players, and then we have sophomores like Jake Wallin and KD who are playing at such a high level in particular in terms of rebounding, you're going to see different lineups.
Yeah, and To your point, different teams present different challenges, and we'll look to what's ahead in just a moment. But have you seen tangible improvement and tangible growth? Now, prior to the Kansas and the K-State wins, they had lost 3 of 4, and all 3 L's were on the road, and they've been very good at home. But just from a macro standpoint, do you feel like this team is evolving, improving, and playing better now than they were, 10, 11 games ago?
Yeah, they absolutely are. I would say the Cincinnati game was interesting because we kind of got Gabe back. He started making some shots, which is really nice to see. But then I think we pressed that. I think Gabe would even say this. I think he ended up taking like 22 threes or something like that and didn't put pressure on the rim. And then because we don't put pressure on the rim because we're relying on Gabe, we don't get as many free throws. We need to be a team that out-rebounds other teams and gets more free throws. So, yeah, we're definitely improving. And if you would have told me we'd be 7 and 8 in this spot, we're 10th in the league right now. Like if the tournament started tomorrow, we'd be playing number 15, but we're close to moving up into the top 8, which is, I think it's fantastic.
All right, let me ask you about Gabe. And I said this about Brandon Carlson last year. Like, Brandon should always be remembered as really a Ute legend. Like, he could have bounced. He could have taken money to go elsewhere, and he stuck around, wanted to play for Craig, and finished out his career here. And I think we need to start talking about Gabe the same way. He breaks Nick's record. He's the all-time three-point leader in Utah history. And yes, the splits have been a little bit down this year, but I always remind people the main reason is teams just sell out on him because he's one of the best shooters in the country. He just is, and he's a big-body kid. And when he's open, I just feel like it's going down. As we're kind of watching the end of Gabe's career, how should Ute fans kind of put it into context about what he's meant to kind of this iteration of Utah basketball?
Yeah, Spence, that was really well said. I liked everything you said there. But in particular, maybe the new term is program guy, right? You hear that bantied about, and I think that's right. Gabe was a program guy. BC was a program guy. We're going to play a kid at UCF who's a program guy. They're point guard. Coaches are talking about those guys with love and affection because there are not as many of them. How important is Gabe? He's critical to our team. He spaces the defense. He takes 2 or 3 players. People are always worried about him. When he sets a screen, you got to decide what to do off that screen he's setting. And including that, he's the nicest, most humble, athlete. He's a student athlete who epitomizes those exact things. So, yeah, our fans should love watching Gabe the last 2 home games.
What do you make of his potential? Because we were debating, a couple of buddies of mine were debating about pro prospects when the BYU game was taking place. And I know Kevin has at least 3 pro players, maybe more, depending on how you define pro players. And it feels like Gabe could cut a paycheck making money somewhere. I don't know if he's an NBA guy, but here's the thing. I wasn't sure if Sam Merrill was either, only because I didn't know if Sam could get his shot off next level. And Gabe's a big body kid like Sam is. Like, if he can find a way to get his shot off next level, maybe he has a cup of coffee in the pros in the NBA, and maybe he sticks. What do you make of Gabe's pro basketball prospects and potential?
Yeah, see, I think you always have to have an NBA skill, and Sam Merrill's a good syllogism in some ways. Sam's a better playmaker. Skill in that shooting. So then, does he have an NBA other skill? Is that defending? Can he be a 3-and-D? He's gotten a lot better. He has had to be one of our better defenders. Making it in the NBA, it's incredibly hard. We know that. Can he play basketball for a long time? Absolutely. Does he fit in terms of roster construction, team chemistry, intelligence, IQ? Absolutely. So if you have that one NBA skill, then you can turn that into something else. You have to be able to defend smalls, even a Gabe size 6'6", who are fast. So that's also part of the equation.
So we move over now. Coming up on Sunday, UCF is the opponent, 2 o'clock Mountain Time. You'll get a little sunshine in Orlando, which is good for you. But UCF has lost 9 of their last 10 games. The one game that they won, they actually trounced TCU by 30 because this conference is dumb. But they're obviously coming in with a situation where they've struggled. And, Sean, if Utah goes 3-2 in their last 5, that's 10 league wins. I didn't think they would scratch 10 at all. But let's start with let's start with UCF on the road. Tell us about UCF. Yeah. What do we need to do to get that win?
Okay, so number one, it's about Johnson more than it is Keyshawn Hall. Keyshawn Hall, number 4, lefty. Imagine this: Johnny Dawkins has a ton of left-handers in that lineup. Keyshawn Hall's get his no matter what. Doesn't want to pass it, so we can decide whether we want to defend him as a small forward, the leading scorer in the Big 12. But I think Johnson, the point guard, is the key. What we do with him, whether we ice him, double him, they're terrible defensively, and they're not good on the glass. So those are two areas that I think they're going to have a hard time defending us. We know that we don't win on the road easily. We've got that big win at TCU, but we can out-rebound them, and then we got to protect, I think, against Johnson and what he can do.
Okay, so let me pan back now with UCF and then, of course, at McHale, which is tough for everybody. Then home against Arizona State and West Virginia. And then that BYU game, man, you know they're going to be chomping at the bit for a little revenge. Do you think 3-2 is a legitimate possibility? And what are your thoughts on if Craig is able to get that done and leading to 10 Big 12 wins year one in the conference?
I mean, there's so many. Yeah, McHale's incredibly hard. I'm going to bank it right now. We're going to go 3-2. That's my call. I think we beat UCF. I think we lose to Arizona. I think we beat West Virginia, and we beat Arizona State at home, and I think we lose to BYU. And I don't like that. I don't want that, but I do think I feel confident saying that. I'm on air right now, so hopefully Coach Smith is listening to this, and he's okay with that. Obviously, West Virginia is a big game at home. It's alumni night. There's going to be a lot of emotion. Arizona State, Bob Hurley's kind of had our ticket, but they're not very good. We'll out physical them, and then the BYU game is going to be a barn burner, man. I mean, my goodness, do they want revenge? Of course they want revenge. Are they good? Yes, they're good.
Yeah, they are. And when they make shots, they're almost impossible. I think they're 15-0 when they shoot 48% from the floor, which is wild. All right, final thing, then I'll set you loose. So Ken Pomeroy in studio yesterday for an hour, and I asked him, I said, look, what's a realistic postseason destination for the team? And what do they have to do to potentially, outside of winning the Big 12 championship, is there anything they can do to make the NCAAs? And he basically said no, but, if they are able somehow, some way to run off their Final Five, which is just going to be really difficult, and then maybe win a couple of games in the tournament, then we have a conversation because that's a 20-win team with a lot of good wins. It's just hard for me to see that happening. Look, I think Craig has done a great job, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to anybody, but more often than not, Sean, when I'm watching Utah basketball, I feel like he does not have the talent the other coach has. And I don't mean that as a knock. It's just how I feel about the job he's done. So before I set you loose, what's your reasonable expectation for postseason basketball for the Utes this year?
Yeah, that's interesting. What Ken said, and obviously Ken is the Bible in many ways. But just to add a thought to what Ken said, from the net rankings, he's absolutely right, and he knows that better than anyone. The net rankings are the NCAA evaluation tool. I think we're at 78 right now. It'd be hard to get higher. We didn't have a quad one win in the preseason. That would really help us. If we'd had that, we'd be higher now. But in history of the Big 12, if you end up at 10-10, which we very well could be, since I believe 2010, those teams have made it to the NCAA tournament. Now, we look like we may be getting only 8 teams in. It's a chance, Spence, that if we go 10-10 and we're in the top 8 and we win on Wednesday, that we could break that rule of Ken's, and that we would call it the .14 rule, right? So there's no way you're coming back in this season, but we'll celebrate if we do it.
All right, my man. I appreciate you hopping on, even though I know you're laboring with that voice a little bit. So I'll let you go and safe travels. Okay.
Thanks, brother. Take care. Have a good weekend.
All right, Sean Mooney. He's on the call with Bill. Excuse me, Bill Riley. I've got a little voice thing going on too on a Friday.
Uh-oh.
So Utah. What do you mean? Uh-oh. We got 90 minutes left, and we have a weekend.
I know, but is that gonna affect you?
What are you going?
Hope it's not. I hope it's not that new COVID. Did you see that?
You know what? I can't do it. I can't do it. If this thing goes down again, I'm going down with the ship. I can't do it again. I did see it. But why are you all doomsday about my voice? We're going to make it through. I'm fine. I just got a little something.
Just hope it's not anything that's going to affect you medically.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because you're so concerned about my well-being. I appreciate it.
Exactly.
Anyway, as I was, Utah's taking on UCF in Orlando coming up on Sunday. That's a 2 o'clock tip time. Then they're at McHale against Arizona next week. So some tough games ahead for the Utes. We're going to switch gears and talk a little golf with Paul Pugmire coming up on the other side. But before we catch a break, new year, new you. Save money, a grip of it, quite frankly, on a bunch of different things, on your wireless, on your internet, on your cable television as well, by dialing 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Hey, Spence. Yeah, I've been battling with this voice thing and this cold for weeks now, so I hope you don't get stuck with it.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, it is the season, right? But it also is the season to check yourself on your bill. Guys, I'll tell you right now, this offer and promotion, it has so much potential. With these rate increases that we've just seen literally everyone do, and big, like 20, 30%. This Netflix increase is pretty substantial. If you haven't seen that, but we have a solution. I can get you Netflix free for the next 2 years. I get you a TV service that's second to none, the most reliable service out there. Now the way Dish is set up too, you've got the 99% reliability of the satellite, but it also has redundancy with the internet too. So it really doesn't have ability to go down. Call us up, get the best system, biggest DVR. We'll get you a 2-year promotion, throw in movie channels, dinner at JCW's on us, Netflix free for 2 years. And guys, I'll tell you, about 60% of the customers, and it is hilarious, are calling in and they're missing this mailer that they got. And we can add like a free $500 gift card on top of the promotion, completely crushing what you currently are paying and saving you thousands. But you just got to call us. Let us do our work. 424-DISH. Call us now, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Paul Pugmire joins us coming up next to talk a little golf. We'll get back to both hockey and the basketball in the 5 o'clock hour. Then we'll say goodnight at 6. On a Friday afternoon, happy Friday to you. Keep it right here on The Drive with Spence Checketts on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Get back to some of the news of the day today, namely Four Nations face-off, a little hockey, and some basketball in the 5 o'clock hour of the program today. We've had a busy show, man. Had a lot to do, and we will switch gears. We've done RSL, we've done jazz, we've done some college football, some college basketball, some hockey. So it's natural that we need to talk a little golf because it is Friday and the sun is kind of shining, which means maybe, Paul Pugmire, we're not that far away from making it out of this, and we'll be able to swing a golf club soon. Sir, happy Friday. How are you?
I am good. Thank you. How are you doing, Spence?
I'm doing well. I'm just chomping at the bit. I've been cleared. I've been cleared to swing a club. I'm going to hit up a simulator a little bit later on, and I'm ready to play, man. That's all I'll say.
I hear you. I hear you. And I'm glad to hear that you are healing and ready to go at it again. That's very pleasing.
Well, you learn as you age that if you don't handle a recovery process correctly, you are doomed just to re-injure yourself, and then you're out for a long time. So I've been diligent, Paul. I've been diligent.
That is so true, and a hard lesson to learn, isn't it?
It is, because in my mind, I'm still 18, and I can still do things that I very much cannot do. So I just have to get used to that. Hey, I want to ask you right off the top, how good, this is a simple question with a good Paul Pugmire answer. Like every time I watch Ludwig Oberg play, I'm like, that kid just has game for days. And he won the Genesis, and every time he's healthy, he seems like he's in the mix at every tournament. How good is he now? How good do you think he can be?
He is top 10 in the world right now. He can be the next superstar. He is, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of them technical, mechanical, some of them his psychological makeup. But you add it all together. Oh, and some of them just the tools that he brings. He's got long levers. He is really, really good. This kid's the real thing.
So what stands out? Like I watch him swing. And it's one of those swings that looks effortless. Then they show his ball speed. It's like 190. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, what stands out most to you about his just simply the golf swing that he has?
Yeah, it's his sequencing. Now it does look like water flowing over a rock easily. You know, it just where it just moves in a nice, easy arc, and everything is easy, and it looks that way. But when you really slow it down and watch the way the constituent parts are moving together, it is, and you know, another kind of athlete to look at for what he's doing would be a small frame baseball pitcher, Pedro Martinez, Sandy Koufax, some of these great pitchers who are small men, but generated an awfully lot of velocity, and then of course they had control. They sequence the motions really, really well, moving one body part into the next body part into the next body part, where things multiply. And then you look at the ball speed that he produces, and it's just effortlessly at $180, and he can crank it above that when he needs to. It's because he sequences the movements and the parts so exquisitely.
You know what else I love, Paul? He plays fast. He's not.
Oh, I love that too.
You know what I mean? Like he's not messing around. Because you always hear these, and look, I can't speak to it because I'm not there in person, but you always hear these people complain about like Cantlay, and I think Max is a guy that people feel like he plays slow. But when you watch Ludwig swing and he's just, when he's ready, it's on. I don't know. There's something about that I appreciate.
He steps up to the ball. He's got a rhythm, and his rhythm is short, but it's always there, and it's always on count like a dancer. And he steps into the shot and pulls the club back and hits the shot, and it's all one motion. And he doesn't stand over it and seize up. Over the years, I've been a big Sergio Garcia fan, and he's been very, very good to first tee, and I appreciate that. But one of my favorite things ever is when the crowd used to call out the number of regrips he would do, and that would just make him more nervous, and he'd keep regripping the club. You will never see Ludwig Oberg do that kind of stuff, because by the time somebody takes a breath to yell something at Oberg, he's already hit the shot. His backswing, pulling the trigger, is part of stepping into the ball, or stepping into the ball is part of pulling the trigger. It's all one motion for him. And yeah, he's very quick. I love it.
Doing a lot of inner work to make sure that when the season starts, I remain centered and zen when the group in front of me drops for the 7th time and I'm waiting to approach the tee box. So I'm doing the best I can to not get frustrated about slow play because, you know, I'm already anticipating another season where tee times are impossible. They're raising the rates. But there just is nothing worse, Paul, than a group in front of you that is clearly slow with 4 holes in front of them open. How common is it on the tour to have a player that takes their time that leads to frustration from the rest of the group?
It happens. It absolutely happens. And, you know, there are slow players out there. Holy cow. You mentioned Cantlay. And look, he's a great player. And when he does swing the club, it's beautiful to watch. And he's a very pure striker of the ball, but it takes him a long time to get to it. It's really frustrating. And well, my favorite thing there on this particular topic is when you've got players who are a combination of quick players themselves, quick trigger pullers themselves, who are a bit irascible in terms of attitude and who are willing to flap their mouths. I'm describing Brooks Koepka. He will. He's a quick. He's not quite as quick as Oberg, but he steps up to the ball and he hits it. And he just doesn't suffer people playing slow around him. And so he is noisy about it. And I like that. Make the noise. Let's shame these people into hitting the ball when it's their turn.
The first time I saw Brian Harman play, I thought my DVR had paused. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I thought there was a glitch in my system. My man looks up and down like 20 different times. That's also got to lead to some frustration.
Oh, it does. It does. And yes, it it can look like if you're streaming, oh no, has my internet gone bad? No, that's Brian Harman. And again, a great player. He's a major champion. But Brian hit the shot. Come on.
No, I'm with you. All right, a couple of different ways to look at what Tony did last weekend. One of them is without the 76, he's like in the mix to win. He goes 76 round 1, and then he was just on fire. 69, 67, 68. Top 5 finish for our guy. Takes home a cool $736K. So, you know, a good weekend for Tony. So what stood out to you about Tony's performance in a tournament that he often talks about as among his favorites on the tour?
That's exactly the point that I want to go to first. I think we've talked about this a little bit. Torrey Pines sets up really well for Tony Finau's game, and he knows it. Everybody around him knows it. And it's if anything, it's a little surprising he hasn't won at Torrey yet, but he will. And it just is a place where he's very comfortable. It's a place where the shots that he hits are the shots that this course is asking you about. And it's a very comfortable fit for him. The one thing, and then another point before I move on. Tony has really figured out the modern PGA Tour. And he has built his schedule and he's built his peaking around the elevated events where there are more FedEx Cup points, more dollars as well. You mentioned that, but more FedEx Cup points. He's got himself into 17th place on the FedEx Cup, largely on the strength of playing well in the elevated events so far this year. And Torrey Pines Genesis is a really good example of that. But that's the one thing I've really noticed this year is that Tony has really gathered his game around those elevated events very efficiently. Now, he's coming off of knee surgery. We've talked about this. We know this. His stamina will be an issue, and especially during this part of the year when it's colder. I think he is saving his energy and waiting till it gets really warmer before he starts playing a lot more. He's not in Mexico this week where he's not the defender, but he's a former champion there. So very clearly an event, a course that he's had a lot of success on, but he's taking it slow to get back into a full schedule following his knee surgery. And this week isn't an elevated event.
If he keeps playing like this, he will not need to be a captain selection for the Ryder Cup team, right? I mean, he's going to play his way in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been watching that. And, he's still outside of being an automatic qualifier, but his trend is getting there and getting there sooner than later. And then, there is this one thing. If you are Captain Keegan Bradley and you get down to making your captain's picks, you darn well better be influenced by people who are a combination of, at the peak part of their lives, Tony is 32, he's there, whose game is trending well. So far, that's absolutely the point. And then the real thing is have some experience in the Ryder Cup, President's Cup as well, in team play for the nation, and have demonstrated an ability to get points, which Tony has clearly done. At this point, it would be a surprise if he weren't a captain's pick, but he's on his way to being a qualifier, and wouldn't that be a lot more fun for us?
So just refresh my memory here. So there's 6 AQs, then how many captain's picks?
They get to a team of 12.
12, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the rankings in front of me. So Scotty,
Yeah.
Xander, Bryson, Colin, Maverick McNeely, and Patrick Cantlay are your top 6. And
Right.
then Tony 7, then Russell Henley, Brian Harmon, Billy Horschel, Harris English, Justin Thomas, Wyndham Clark. And then, you can move down the list from there. So give me your thoughts. And I don't know if you want to name 12 names. What would you like to see that team look like? Because obviously, after what happened last year in Italy, a lot of American golf fans are going to be out for blood.
Yes, and it's going to be on Long Island. It's a New York crowd at Bethpage, and Bethpage is a big boy golf course, and so I'm going to be looking for players who have either or a combination of a big game or a short game. The middle stuff less important. You've got to be able to attack Bethpage. You've got to be able to attack in a match play circumstance anyway. And then if the attack goes a little awry, you've got to have a short game to recover. And then you're going to want to look at players who have the ability to withstand that crowd. And they're going to be very, very pro-American. They're going to be very noisy, but they will also turn on you in a hurry. And so I'm going to look at people who have been tested and who have shown an ability to withstand this. So, let's top 6 are going to be in. Just looking like you described, the list below, the names that jump out at me are Tony Finau, love it. Justin Thomas, I want him on my team. Wyndham Clark, the guy is rock hard nails, and he's won a U.S. Open. I want him on my team. And both Thomas and Clark and Finau, big hitters. The rest of them, I'll tell you, the one who's moving up quickly right now is Daniel Berger. He's coming back off of some real severe health issues, and he seems to be completely healthy. He's been making some noise. If his trend continues, he's going to be right in the mix if I want him.
What is the reputation or feel around the tour about who Keegan Bradley is as a player, a person, and as a captain? I'll tell you what, I know you probably don't love that I reference Full Swing on Netflix all the time, but I
like it. That's good.
I was just wildly impressed with the way he handled the news that he was not going to be making the trip last year, when he certainly, well, I guess a couple of years ago now, when he certainly had a case to be put on the team. And I don't know how much of this was performative for the cameras, but he has his wife and his kids sitting there, and they're cheering for the team. It was a good look for him, I guess is what I'm saying. So what's the feel that he gets that captain's nod and the kind of the feel of the job he can do around the tour?
I like the question, and I like Full Swing, what they're doing there. And I appreciate you asking. I don't have the privilege of knowing Keegan Bradley personally. I wish I did. But everything that I can see and people I know who do know him, it all adds up to him being authentic. What you're seeing is a passionate player who is very good as a practitioner of the game and can be so in spurts, and we've seen that in his career. But he is legitimately passionate about wanting to be a part of this event and wanting to go there last time. And you're right, he had a dang good case. It would not have been a problem had he been picked to be on that team. I think you'll never really know, but probably he was the next guy in. He was the 13th pick. The one thing I really enjoyed and admired about what he did is he was there cheering for the players he wished he could have been walking down the fairways with, but he also was straight up of saying, "Dang, I wanted this. I'm disappointed. I think I could be there, and I should be there, and I think I could be adding to it." I love that, and I agree with you completely. He handled everything exceptionally well. I think he will be an excellent captain. One thing to remember is he's still a young man. He is not 40, and this is a guy who could be captain a lot as the years go by.
So the player that most people believe took his spot was Justin Thomas, was JT, and that was the year where he didn't even qualify for the FedEx, but he's been really good this year. He's got 3 top 10s in the 5 cuts he's made. He's 5th on the tour in scoring, and there's only 2 players that have played in 5 events that have a score that's beneath 68.5, and it's he and it's Sepp Straka. So what sort of little magic is JT recapture this year, Paul?
I think that JT was adjusting to his personal life. He had become a father during that whole time frame, and as you and most of our listeners know, that's a shock to your system, and it makes no difference what you think you've done to prepare yourself for it. You don't know until you're there. I think that really played a role in this. JT is pure pedigree as a player. He has been since he was a young junior player, has been all the way through, and his record proves it. And like I said a minute ago, I want Justin Thomas on my team. I did not really disagree with picking Justin Thomas last year, but I do, even though I do think that Keegan Bradley had a case, like you say. That's a good way to put it. But Thomas is proven, and I think that matters.
So, since it is going on right now, and you referenced Tony's won the thing, the Mexico Open right now, Vedanta World, again, Tony not down there, and I just have the scoreboard in front of me. It doesn't look like there are a ton of big dogs down there. So just kind of tell us about this tournament and, what golf fans should know about what they're going to be watching over the weekend.
2 things. They both exemplify a trend that is not coming to the PGA Tour. It is here, and that is hyper young players. 2 players that you really want to watch this weekend are Aldrich Potgieter from South Africa. He is 21, I think, maybe 22 years old. And he's built like a lineman, not as tall as the current generation linemen are, but stout and low center of gravity, but very athletic. And he turns on that ball with very strong leg action and very strong legs. And he generates just unworldly clubhead speed. He is stupid long. He shot 61 today. He leads the tournament by 4 as we speak. That he is somebody to watch. Another person to watch is a 17-year-old high school kid who has foregone college and already become a professional, and that is Blades Brown. Currently sits at T37. He just made his first cut. He is 17 years old and cannot vote, but he will get a check in a PGA tournament this week.
Wait. Is his name really Blades Brown?
Yeah, I know, and that is great, but it's actually his mother's maiden name.
Oh,
okay. But yeah, it is. What a great name, huh?
That's a great golf name. Yeah, a great golf name. Hey, is watching pro golfers hitting on a simulator doing anything for you, Paul?
Well, if you're asking about PGL, I went into it really skeptical, and then I realized after the first hour or so when I was watching it that I couldn't turn away. I think it's interesting. It's not the U.S. Open. It's not the Masters. It's not even the Buick Open. But it's interesting, and it's still watching them swing the club. And I'll tell you, I sure couldn't turn away when Tiger was swinging. even when he got the yardage all wrong and hit a 56 degree on a 200-yard shot. But that's a different topic. Yeah, I'm in on the TGL. I think it is entertaining and fun. It's not the real thing, but it's fun.
I thought Tiger was going to put his 56 degree through Tom Kim's temple. Like, I got to say, I think he came out looking really good there because, he is a stone cold competitor that has several stories in his lore of him not necessarily being the kindest person to compete with. When Tom Kim was laughing at him, I thought it was over. When Tiger turned around and you first saw the look on his face, I'm like, Tom, you better stop laughing. He's going to kill you. But he came off looking really good because he laughed it off, which I thought was a good look for him.
Yeah, I agree. The whole thing, well, it underscores really the basis of why you even ask. Simulator golf is not real golf. And, do we like watching it? Well, yeah, there is no possible way in a real course situation that Tiger would have misunderstood the yardage call. And it is so common that when players and caddies talk to each other, they give the numbers dropping the first numeral. A 150-yard shot will be called. They say this is 50. We want to carry at 47. There's a backstop at 52 if you want to carry it into that and spin it back. Those are the kinds of conversations that you hear all the time. And because you're standing there and your eyes and your brain can look out there and see, oh, I'm actually 150 yards away, it all makes sense. But in the simulator, you're just standing there looking at the screen. Somebody said 99 and Tiger yanked down his 56. I thought it was great. And good on Kim for laughing at him, actually. I thought that was cool.
No, for sure. It turned out better than I thought it was going to. All right, Paul, before we find out what's on the show coming up, and I wasn't going to bring this up because I didn't want to feel like I was rubbing anything in, but then I realized you've been to so many PGA Tour events and tournaments that I have a long way to go to even catch up with you. But I got to tell you about a cool experience that I'm going to have, and I need you to tell me what I'm in for, okay?
Okay.
So I have been invited to be, and I don't even know what this is, but I've been invited to be an honorary observer coming up at Arnold's tournament, the Arnold Palmer Invitational.
Oh.
Yeah, at Bay Hill. I've never been to a PGA event. I don't know what I'm in for, but I'm going with my brother coming up in a couple of weeks, and I could not be more excited. Apparently, I'm going to follow a group inside the ropes, which is going to be really cool. So tell me what I'm in for, what this experience is going to entail.
Well, first of all, I'm really happy for you. I think that's fantastic, and I want your autograph.
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
It's so cool. So the honorary observer means that you are assigned a group, and you walk along with them inside the ropes. That's totally true. And you're walking along as though you were an official of the tour, keeping score, observing the shots they hit, calling for rules guidance on the radio if somebody needs that, as though you had an official role, but you don't. All you're doing is walking along and having a really cool and great experience. And so there's a number of reasons why these things are given out to somebody. Whatever your reason is, it's the right reason, and I'm just happy for you. I think that is fantastic. Plus, it would be fantastic anywhere, anytime. But this is Arnold's tournament. You'll be at Bay Hill. That is so stinking cool, Spence. Way to go.
No, I can't wait. I'm excited. All right, what's coming up on the radio program? What do you want our listeners to know?
Well, there's something special going on at Utah Valley University. Dane Huddleston just won his third tournament in a row. That is so hard. And we're going to be talking with both Huddleston and his coach, Chris Curran, because the Wolverines won the team event as well. That'll be on Utah Golf Radio tomorrow morning on ESPN 700, 8 to 10 o'clock.
Paul, thank you, sir, for the time. It's always fun. Have a great weekend. We'll chat soon, okay?
You too.
Paul Pugmire, brought to you by our friends at You Into Golf. The You Into Golf PGA Tour update. Don't miss the 50% bonus trade-in event. Bring in your current clubs to You Into Golf and receive 50% bonus trade-in value towards your new 2025 golf clubs. It's the Mexico Open at Vedanta World, Vedanta World down there in Mexico. I don't know any of these golfers, so I will just give you a couple of names of people that I've heard of. Akshay Bhatia is at 10 under par. That's good for fourth, I guess, at this point. Tony Finau has won this event. He is not playing. And you know what? Nobody else is either. Blades Brown, our guy Blades Brown, 17 years old. He is at 5 under par. Joel Damon of Netflix fame is in the tournament. Yeah, I'm surprised. Not a lot of big names at this event. So there you go. All right. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Final hour of the program on a Friday afternoon comes your way next on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network. All right, what is going on? It is time for the drive at 5, which means your commute home on a Friday afternoon/evening gets rolling right about now. It's always good to have you with us. Happy Friday to you. Sun is shining here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. It was a little snowy and cold this morning. A lot of snow up in the mountains over the past 72 hours, which, of course, is always good news. Looks like there's some warm weather on its way in the forecast as we are inching our way closer and closer to March. All right, we're going to bring in Tom Callahan. Not that one, not the brake pad salesman, not the guy that sold brake pads and Tommy Boy, but he does the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, and he's been in pro hockey for a number of different years, calling a lot of games. And so we're going to bring Tom in to talk about what, by all accounts, was an absolutely successful Four Nations tournament and a final last night in Boston that brought in, wait for it, 9.3 million viewers. It is the most watched NHL sanctioned game in decades. It is the highest watched hockey game that was not played during the Olympics. And, of course, Canada got it done. It was a great game that went to overtime in a great hockey city, Boston, of course. And it was a really, really compelling television product. And that's something, quite frankly, that hockey has struggled with. I mean, even once upon a time, executives decided to attach a flame to the puck, or like something that was glowing to the puck on television so you could actually follow the action. So we'll break that down coming up with Tom. Hopefully you guys had a chance to tune in. I just thought it was very, very gripping. It was great television. And the fact that it went to overtime, I think, made it even more fun. Now, Canada, 8-1 in their last 9 overtime games in competitive international play. They've won the last 7 tournaments internationally when NHL players are involved. They are still the king of hockey. They are the preeminent hockey nation in the world. They're the winningest hockey nation in the world. And so excited to bring Tom in to break that down today before we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. The 5 o'clock hour of the drive is brought to you by our friends at Burt Brothers. With over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations, Burt Brothers ASE certified technicians bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction. Industry-leading warranties and low-price tire guarantees. One-stop shop for reliable repairs and maintenance. From tires and alignments to fluids and brakes, offering a full range of automotive services tailored to meet your needs. Now offering value tire options such as Americas and Summit tires starting at just $69 with warranties that go up to 70,000 miles. As one of the few AAA certified shops in Utah, Burt Brothers upholds the highest standards in automotive service. You can stop by Burt Brothers or Tire Busters locations or schedule an appointment today to experience the trusted service that has made them a Utah favorite for over 3 decades. Burt Brothers doing it better since day one. Check them out online at burtbrothers.com. So, as we've discussed throughout the course of the show today, whenever and I keep using this term, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but whenever a fringe sport, and by that I mean any sport that isn't football, that isn't basketball, that isn't baseball, kind of still the 3 sports that garner the most attention, generate the most revenue, et cetera, in our country. So whenever a sport like hockey or a sport like soccer or lacrosse or whatever it is experiences something like this, the conversation turns into what does it mean for that sport? What does it mean for the league? And, of course, now that we have an NHL team here at our market, what does it mean for the interest of the Utah Hockey Club as they will get back in action coming up tomorrow on the road against Los Angeles? But when they return home, they've got a number of different home games left. When they return home, they're going to be back home on Sunday against Vancouver. Then they've got 4 straight, actually, home games with Tuesday, Chicago, Thursday, Minnesota, and Saturday, it's New Jersey. So will Utah Hockey Club games feel different? Will NHL games feel different? There are some deals as far as the broadcasting situation with pro hockey that are about to come up. Will they be able to negotiate a television deal that improves their lot in life? Because that's what pro sports is about these days, man. Live TV rights are paying the bills in pro football. They're certainly paying the bills in pro basketball. But on the hockey side of things, they've never been able to consummate a television deal that has put them in a spot where they can really see their revenue increases. So, paying players more, coaches more, executives more, and just improving the business of pro hockey. Gary Bettman is a very smart man. Spent a number of years with David Stern in the NBA before taking over as commissioner in the NHL, and he's very savvy. He's very bright. He's a business-oriented commissioner, lawyer by trade, and I would imagine they're salivating at the thought of being able to come to the table with negotiating chips right now that they probably haven't had since 1980, if we're honest. The 1980 Miracle on Ice, Lake Placid, which changed the landscape of hockey in America. And a lot of people draw a straight line to that day and what it did for the game and how we as a country have improved simply with the quality of play. We just won the Junior World Championships. That's a world championship that's won by Canada almost every single time they play it. Well, the United States won it, and the United States came, if I could use a soccer term, within a baby's breath of beating Canada for the Four Nations Championship. But Canada still top, the top of the heap, top of the mountain. They're still the best hockey country in the world. But the U.S. is making inroads. And after what happened in 1980, and of course it's the Olympics, it's a much different situation. As the story goes, if you are a young Sports Talk Radio listener, a bunch of throwaway high school kids, college kids were able to go beat Russia in potentially the biggest upset in Olympic history, if not the history of the world. And with the attention that garnered and the explosion of youth hockey in our country, we're now starting to see a couple generations later that we are knocking on the door to at least hang with Canada, if not beat them from time to time. I do think the success of this Four Nations face-off will motivate the powers that be in pro hockey to include other countries in this. I think Germany's probably going to get a seat, and they should. Or will they switch it up a little bit to do America versus international players, right? Kind of like the NBA is talking about. I don't think that's the play. Russia maybe at some point gets an invite back to the table when, all that stuff goes away. Maybe they get an invite sooner than we actually believe based off the past week. Anyway, moving on. I do think they will probably expand this tournament, and I do think it's something that if you're a hockey fan, if you're an NHL fan, you must have really enjoyed that because so many non-hockey fans were tuned in. The Jazz also start the second half of their season tonight. They welcome in the best team in the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder, are at the Delta Center tonight. OKC is a 15.5-point favorite. The Jazz, of course, the race is on for lottery odds and lottery luck. There's a lot of good NBA tonight. The Knicks and the Cavs are about to get going. Big game out east. We'll see the Timberwolves and the Rockets play. The last time those two teams played, I think Ant went for like 45. Then the late-night game at Golden One Center is the Warriors and the Kings, so some good NBA basketball on tonight as well. This has aged well. The Black Crowes have aged well. I'll tell you that much. Good 90s band that has aged well. We've been on this quest this week to figure out if 90s music has aged well. And I think the results are mixed. I think it just depends on the band. Because you're not wrong, and I went back and did a deep dive this week. There are plenty of 90s bands and music that, all right, it was a weird time for all of us. Maybe you got into whatever it was. Maybe you thought Nirvana was awesome and you tried to sing like them. There are way too many people in that decade, and then moving into the early 2000s, just simply tried to sing like Eddie Vedder. I'm talking to you, Scott Stapp. Like the bad Eddie Vedder impressions turned into Creed and turned into some of those horrible bands. Pearl Jam aged well, but I think it just depends on the act. I think it just depends on the band.
Yeah, and that goes for every decade, every era, genre of music. But I do think that it may have been especially commonplace late 90s, early 2000s. There are so many bands and songs that I listen to now that I'm just like, oh my goodness. We listened to that, and we went to those concerts, and we dressed that way. Again, it happens everywhere, but I think there was a moment there around Y2K where it was really heavy.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, so busy night in the world of pro basketball, including the Jazz welcoming in Oklahoma City coming up tonight for a 7:30 tip time. BYU is at McHale tomorrow to take on Arizona. Utah Hockey Club is in action coming up tomorrow night on the road against L.A. Both the Utah men and women will be in action coming up on Sunday. So we have a busy show. A busy weekend on the station. So stay tuned for a little action as well. All right, what do you got going on a weekend such as this where it looks like the weather might be warm? Are you going to traverse out into the wild and get into some dangerous things?
I'll get outside, especially after the last couple weekends. If it's 50-plus degrees and there's some sun out, I'll get out there. I might watch Tommy Boy this weekend too.
That's the play, because ever since you brought up the Tom Callahan reference that he is the king of brake pads or whatever, the best Tommy Boy lines have just been going through my head all show long. It's a movie that absolutely stands up to this day.
I get a good look at a T-bone by sticking my head up a butcher's ass, but I'd rather take his word for it.
How about Sean Mooney is such a sweet guy. He did not want to say we kicked their ass on the boards on the radio. What a nice guy.
He's a sweetheart.
Indeed. I have until Monday to accept the nomination for the best radio show in Salt Lake City from our friends at Best of SLC. Should I accept the nomination? This is the 5th time that we've been nominated as one of the best radio shows in Salt Lake City. And we're 0 for 4. We've never won it, but we've been nominated. We are the Susan Lucci of Sports Talk Radio. Or excuse me, just simply, we are the only sports show nominated.
Oh.
There are no other sports shows nominated this year. We're the only sports show. I think there are 7 shows. Should I accept it and see what happens? Because
I think so.
Radio from Hell not nominated this year.
And they usually win it.
They usually
keep us off the stage.
Yes, we get nominated, then we go pay $40 for a rubbery piece of chicken and watch Radio from Hell get the award. So I'm not sure that I'm into it.
Well, if Radio from Hell's out and we have a better chance, maybe you should accept it.
All right.
Hey, listen, man. You never know how many Best of SLC awards you're going to get nominated for.
Yeah, when I was young, I remember thinking maybe one day I'll win a Best of SLC award on the radio. So
Me too. I've dreamt of it.
So maybe we'll make some dreams come true. All right, Porter, let's get out of here. What comes our way on a Monday edition of the show?
On a Monday edition of The Drive, we'll cover all of our bases. NBA Daily Assista with our guy Tom Haberstroh, Josh Furlong for the latest on the Ute side. As you mentioned, like everything going on over the weekend for the University of Utah. You've got soccer, you've got baseball and softball, you've got gymnastics, you've got skiing, of course, Utah women's basketball and the Runnin' Utes in action over the weekend as well. Amy Donaldson will be in studio with us for an entire hour, and then tentatively we'll be chatting with Bill Armstrong of the Utah Hockey Club after they're in action on Sunday as well.
All right, there you go. That'll be a fun Monday show. With that, we'll say goodnight for this Friday edition of the program. Special thank you today, Kurt Schmidt, little RSL, Howard Beck, little Jazz and NBA, Tom Callahan, some brake pads and some hockey, Sean Mooney, some college basketball, Paul Pugmire, some golf. Went all over the place today. If you missed any of it, check out the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store, the Google Play Store for free. And then if you have some time this weekend and you want to help out the show, if you like what we do and appreciate it, you can help us out by checking out our podcast page wherever you get your shows. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. So just do a search on your preferred catcher. Give us a rating and a review. If you say nice things in the comments and give us all the stars, it actually helps us. So appreciate it. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great weekend. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Talk to you on Monday. As always, you can catch the program right here on ESPN 700, 92 FM. Proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network.